Do you guys see when people like start loading a whole bunch of like ideological, we're taking shots at like the Ukraine war out of everything here, like just randomly thrown into this, like so bizarre.
For example, the United States in when this type of things were happening in the plantation and KKK.
Okay. We got Romanian judges, KKK,
so wild.
Andrew Tate, poor black man.
I like how he selectively quotes from the women too. He picks and chooses from the women so much.
What she's claiming is other women were fined and their percentage was...
So like, this is what I mean when I say he's clearly operating in bad faith. What he's saying is true. She wasn't the one that said that she got fined. It was another person. But if he knows that quote, he should also know that she also said, oh yeah, they're not, there's literally a security booth right out here, you're right. The scary part was, I realized it was about halfway through, but then I didn't feel bad because I realized he was a bad debater. If he would have, his whole point, what he was trying to focus on the entire time was that the judge didn't provide enough evidence for detainment.
Is Andrew Tate guilty or innocent?
I personally think there's enough out there that Andrew Tate himself has said that unless he's lying about what he's done, he's obviously guilty of at least a few things, namely defrauding the women that he gets to work for him, probably sex trafficking via the loverboy method, but I don't think anybody should be convicted of a crime unless adequate evidence is brought forth in a fair court, and then he's had his day to defend himself. So I think he's probably guilty, but I think we should wait and see how the process plays out.
Okay, and what is your take?
Yeah, my take is looking at the evidence and looking at the data that we have in front of us, I don't believe he's guilty. And that's all we can base it on is the evidence as opposed to snippets on YouTube or things that have been phrased or portrayed in a certain way via social media. Okay,
so Destiny, you mentioned the loverboy method. Do you think that the loverboy method is actually sex trafficking, and why?
It's interesting the dance that he'll play here between pivoting between the evidence and pivoting between just that document that the judge uses to deny his appeal.
I don't have thoughts on it, or it's not like my goal is to define like what is sex trafficking. I just go by what the laws are, and usually the questions are, is he guilty of the crime of sex trafficking? And the loverboy method is defined as sex trafficking, I believe, in most countries, because at least in Romania, and I think in most countries, if you are able to get a girl to do sex work using a coercive or fraudulent method, meaning you're misleading them as to what your relationship is, then that would constitute sex trafficking if you exploit them afterwards for sex work.
Okay, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with what Destiny said just towards the end. So basically, loverboy method is a method by which human trafficking occurs. So if someone did loverboy method on its own, that would not be a crime. So what makes it a crime is when you do the loverboy method, and then you meet the requirements of human trafficking, and therefore you then meet the standard. So on its own, loverboy method, a person would not be convicted of human trafficking solely based on loverboy method.
So where do you guys disagree then?
I mean,
it seems like you're kind of on the same page.
I mean, I actually don't know what Destiny's position is, so I'd actually like to...
Well, my position is we should wait and see what the court system does. I think everything they've done up to this point has been A-OK, seems to be by the books. And then I think we should wait and see how the process plays out. I believe there's, in Romanian law, up to a maximum of 180 days that they can remain detained while they finish their investigation. And then it's up to the Romanian court to decide whether or not they want to bring charges to the Tates.
Right, so in terms of what Destiny said, I don't think that they've done everything A-OK. That's the first point. And the second point is I do believe that they've contravened certain domestic as well as international laws. And then separate to that, even when you look at the remanding someone for 180 days, although that doesn't contravene law, I have serious issues with that as well.
Could you say the second part of that again?
Yeah, so the 180 days, although that is within Romanian law, I have serious issues with it, and I can expand on that if you want.
Okay, yeah, could you tell me why?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we have a scenario where in Romania, you can basically detain someone without having adequate evidence to prosecute or convict. So essentially, you detain someone, take away their liberty and rights, put them in prison, and then say, guess what, I'm looking for evidence. Now, I understand a lot of people may not understand the problems with this, but coming from the background that I am, being a Muslim, being an Asian, a lot of our community have been through this, both in the United States and the United...
This is one of the few times where it's interesting, because the guy seems like relatively intelligent, but he makes it so ideological. I think it hurts him even on the conservative side. I can't believe he tried to make this like a race religion thing. What a weird angle of approach for this.
United Kingdom, when your liberty is taken away without due process, without having a trial, without evidence being submitted. And so for us, from the perspective of minorities and from that perspective, we have serious issues because that was used to terrorize our community for more than 20 years. So yes, I will speak out about that, even if it's in the United States, United Kingdom, Romania, France. I think it's a serious issue when you could take away someone's liberty without having adequate evidence. And 6 months is horrendous to take away someone's liberty. That's a significant period of someone's life to say, we haven't got enough evidence, we're going to jail you for 6 months and then we're going to look for the evidence.
Do you agree with him or no?
I would if what he was saying was true. So
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of tricky word games being played when we talk about detaining somebody without enough evidence. So in the Romanian legal system, if you are in the finishing stages of an investigation, you can detain somebody while you finish that investigation up, especially if you believe the people that you're detaining might be a flight risk. You can detain somebody without having enough evidence to charge them with a crime or convict them of a crime, obviously. But
I should have, but when I'll go through all the claims first before I guess I start like trying to do more reading or whatever. But I had a bunch of people email me stuff. I should have leaned in harder in comparisons to the American legal system. I actually feel like the more that I think about it, the Romanian legal system is actually quite similar to the U.S. legal system. Detaining somebody without enough evidence to necessarily charge them with a crime immediately, that happens in the United States too. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Somebody emailed me was like, yeah, of course you do that. If somebody comes to my house and my wife is dead and I have a gun, like the cops are going to arrest me. And depending on the severity of what might have happened, they can detain me for quite a while too while they're investigating that crime. The idea that I can be like, oh, you don't have to charge me right the now, I can just moonwalk away. No, that's not true. Even in U.S. court system, that's not true. They can hold you for a while they do an investigation. That's not unique to Romania at all. I don't know why I don't know why I didn't even think of this when I was having this conversation.
you do require compelling evidence to detain somebody, which is left to the discretion of the judges that are ruling on the case. I've noticed that you've quoted that document sometimes, the one that was released in, it was either November or December, where the judge said that there's not enough evidence to convict of a crime. You said that several times, but they're not looking for enough evidence to convict them of a crime. What the judge was supposed to evaluate was, is there enough evidence to warrant detaining them? And he did feel like there was enough evidence at that time. And the statements that he's made and the Romanian criminal code are all completely okay with the UN and with the United.
How long though? 6 months is a long time. I think it depends on the severity of the charge and everything that's going on. Because people can be detained. How long were, for instance, like the January 6th people? Some of those people were detained for quite a while without any charges being filed against them. I mean, it sucks, but I think it can happen. It just depends on. It's going to come down to what exactly is being investigated. You know. Destiny looks cute to me with his fake glasses on. I don't know why you think my glasses are fake. I have a prescription of -0.5 and -1. They're real glasses. I just don't wear them that often because I don't need them. But I was going for the intellectual look here.
United States and with any other international legal body.
Oh, her setup is very strange. She has a giant TV in front of both of us where we can see the other person that we're talking to. So it feels natural. At least it feels natural to me to look forward at the person I'm talking to on the TV. But it looks weird to you guys because it just looks like we're both staring forward, like avoiding eye contact with each other, which is kind of strange. So like the way that it looks from behind is here's the couch. Both of us are sitting on the couch. And then in front of us is a big TV. And both of us are on the couch on the TV. So it looks to you guys like we're just like staring forward, avoiding eye contact. When in reality, we're just looking at each other on the TV, basically. If you have that prescription, do you wear eye contacts then? I'm like a 0.25 difference in glasses, such a dramatic effect on my eyes. Does it really have that dramatic? I mean, like, I definitely see better with my glasses. Like, I can see, like, individual leaves and everything. But even without them, the only time I would feel a little worried is if I was driving at night in an unfamiliar area in a place that's really dark. Then I'd probably be like, I think I need my glasses. But other than that, I don't think it doesn't feel that big. They can't hold you for longer than 48 to 72 hours. This is granted by the 6th Amendment and the right to a speedy trial. Without having charged you of a crime? Is that 100%? I know Brandon literally probably just fucking Googled this and just gave me the first answer. So let me just see what my... I had a law student email me a bunch of stuff. I'll read this first point here, I guess. Destiny, that is incorrect. It's 48 hours before the judge. The judge can keep you. One of the main points the person you debated harped on was the level of evidence, the level of evidence required to detain someone pending trial. They also seem to frame it in such a way where what Romania is doing is somehow beyond what is considered normal. Although he briefly mentioned the US doing something similar, he incorrectly attributed it solely to something like Guantanamo Bay. This argument appears to rely solely on his personal, subjective, and moral feelings about what the law should be instead of what the law is. Hold on. While it is true that generally, federal investigations are often done before an arrest, nothing prevents prosecutors from continuing an investigation when a defendant is detained pre-trial. It's also important to remember that the police and prosecutors often belong to separate agencies. Let's take an example where a federal agent witnesses someone commit a federal crime and takes them to federal court. An officer requires reasonable suspicion of a crime in order to briefly detain someone and conduct an investigatory stop. If, however, during that stop, the officer obtains enough information that would give the officer probable cause that a crime has been committed, or, for instance, actually witnesses a crime in the officer's presence, the officer can arrest the suspect. After the suspect is arrested, they are taken to their initial hearing / first appearance in front of a judge, where they are told why they are arrested and given pre-trial release conditions, like bail, for instance. If the defendant cannot post bail and be released, they remain in jail or prison. After someone is arrested, prosecutors have around 70 to 100 days to actually charge / indict the defendant if they've not yet done so. This is true for basically every crime, not just Guantanamo Bay. During this time, the prosecutors might speak to witnesses and victims, conduct depositions, review the evidence, or do their own investigation. When someone is arrested and detained pre-trial, the prosecutor does not have to and is not expected to already have enough evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. There is much debate about someone being detained pre-trial if they cannot post bail because of the assumption of innocence, but the fact is that such an occurrence simply is not uncommon or violative of anyone's rights. The burden to arrest someone is probable cause, and meanwhile, the prosecutor tries to amass enough evidence to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt later at trial. To charge / indict someone, I believe, my memory may be foggy here, the standard is that the prosecutor has to have a good faith belief that they continue with the case / prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, you don't even need to meet the beyond a reasonable doubt standard to charge someone. If the prosecutor does not meet that good faith standard, / does not think they can, in the end, prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, they would have to dismiss the case by not bringing forth charges or by dropping the charges, depending how far the case has gotten. If you're interested in steps to federal criminal case, you can review this from U.S. Department of Justice. For a little more meat, I highly suggest you to read and review the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. They're surprisingly not that hard to read or understand, and you should try reading whatever sounds interesting to you. Ultimately, as mentioned, I don't understand the point your debate opponent was making. It seems driven by emotion or a notion of unfairness, not the law. Presumably, Romania is well within their capacity to detain someone and conduct an investigation pre-trial, to either renew what the police or review what the police have gathered, question people themselves, or find whatever they think might help. So, according to this guy, you could sit anywhere from 70 to 100 days waiting for a charge, even in U.S. courts. So, it's interesting.
So I don't understand when we try to push against the Romanian legal system why we say things like it's against international law or it's against international freedoms when this is how the Romanian criminal court system has been structured. It's one of the reasons why Andrew Tate, verbally said he was going to move there. I don't agree that it's in violation of any international laws. If it is, I'd like to hear which ones.
Sure, of course I can answer that, Destiny. So I'll answer your first point about in terms of the level of evidence that was required to remand him. So my position is that it's unacceptable to remand someone when you haven't got enough evidence to prosecute or to convict.
I should have just known this. It's unacceptable to reprimand someone when you don't have enough evidence to prosecute / convict. This is just wrong.
The threshold to hold someone isn't the way you framed it, where it's very close to basically prosecute or convict. The evidence is based on reasonable suspicion, so the bar is very low to meet that threshold, hence why I have a problem with it. If the bar was much higher, was close to a beyond reasonable doubt, maybe even if it was balance of probability, we could maybe talk about that and look at the possibility of why that would be acceptable. But when the balance is reasonable suspicion, the bar is very low, it's easy to meet, and that's why I think it's unacceptable. First point. Second point, in terms of where they've contravened international law, that's a separate issue. So I will go into that because I know you've asked a fair question. So I'll just go through it. So first of all, Article 5.1 of the European Commission, which is incorporated into Romanian law, so it breaks European law as well as domestic Romanian law states that whenever you provide evidence or prosecution provides evidence, he has to provide evidence both for and against his stance. That's not happened. He has not included evidence, which is, for example, the CCTV evidence. He has not included, for example, evidence which is long-form text messages, which include the entirety of the conversation. He's not included the witness statements, 3 of the witness statements of the alleged victims who say they're not victims. So those are examples of contravening Article 5.1. They've convened Article 9.2, which this one we can argue because the first one I don't think there'll be much argument, but second one, 9.2, is you can only detain on exceptional circumstances.
Let's see. In Germany, if you've been arrested and taken into custody by the police, you must be brought before a judge as soon as possible, on the latest on the day after your arrest, and at the latest on the day after your arrest. The judge then decides you should be kept in prison while awaiting trial. There is no maximum duration of pretrial detention, but in most cases are tried within 6 months. You can only be kept in prison for more than 6 months before trial if there are strong grounds to justify your detention. The decision to keep you detention pre-penalty will be made by the judge, may be challenged and get a complaint to the higher court. Well, this is after you've been charged with a crime, though, I think. So this doesn't fit what we're talking about here.
And then 9.4 is that basically it's illegal to detain someone unless the circumstances are exceptional. And in this case, the exceptionality or the illegality or the problematic issue was that basically the psych report was used as a basis to detain them. And the psych report has significant issues in it. And I can go into depth in that if you want. Would you like me to, or shall I move on?
Well, I guess for the first point that you bring up, we should get a notepad to write down on.
A notepad?
Yeah, unironically. For the first point that you bring up, so saying that you need beyond probable doubt.
Beyond reasonable doubt.
Or beyond reasonable doubt.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Reasonable suspicion.
Okay, reasonable suspicion.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe fair to take issue with these things, but I mean, different courts across different countries are allowed to set up their legal systems in the ways that they see fit.
I shouldn't have yielded this here. I just need to be more familiar with. I roughly know the U.S. criminal procedure, just from all the random shit we've watched from JCS. For some reason I let my mind get tricked into thinking that, I am thinking that lots of different countries have super different legal systems. That's probably not true. There's probably 90% similarity between most Western world legal systems. This is probably the case. With the U.S. and Romania probably being quite similar. I've let people frame the Andrew Tate case in an incorrect way for quite a while. I just shouldn't. I'm just being too charitable to that side. I shouldn't let them frame it that way.
And the Romanian courts are set up in a way that is in accordance with the European Commission. The judge himself references the EC and provides the evidence that they have for the EC in the statement that he released in order to make sure that it was on the up and up. I understand the desire to critique the Romanian legal system. I wouldn't want to live in a system like that personally, but that's why.
But you kind of can in the U.S. I shouldn't even say that. They already kind of do that in the U.S.
I moved to I live in the United States. I haven't moved to another country to participate in that legal system.
You have the Patriot Act. You have the Patriot Act in the United States as well. We have the similar provisions in the United Kingdom.
We might, but I'm just saying that Andrew Tate, the Tates specifically moved to Romania because they said they wanted to.
And he makes a point. This is a point in my favor, and I don't even realize it, right? Because he's actually arguing that there are provisions, even in U.S. legal code, that are similar, right? The Patriot Act exists. Can I challenge the Patriot Act in international court? I'm sure some people probably tried, but I mean, with the United States, baby, we are the international courts, right?
Specifically take advantage of that legal system. There are videos of Tate saying, lock me up in jail, I'll give him $1,000 and I'll be out and I'll have a masseuse and blah, blah, blah. And he's saying that, and he moved to that system, and that system is legal insofar as the EU framework is concerned, because nobody's challenged it, nobody has said anything about it. And I think that to try to call out that particular way of doing things now, I think rings a little bit hollow.
Okay, I'll answer that, and then we can move on to the Article 5 point. So in terms of the reasonable suspicion, yeah, again, I have a huge problem with it. Irrespective of Andrew Tate thought he was in a situation where there was leniency in the law, that was error on his part. But it doesn't mean that just because someone makes a silly decision and assumes that certain laws, that is unaware of the legalistic system in a certain country, that he should then, the harshness of it, we should ignore as well. In terms of the harshness of it, the reason why we have severe issues is because I can understand why you may not understand it, but people from the minority community who have been abused and terrorized by these laws, they understand what the problem is by it. And so for us, we're not just hating on the Romanian system, we're saying anywhere in the world that has detention without having significant...
He virtue signals on this so hard so many times. I let it slide because I figure it just sounds ridiculous. I think I call him out a couple times, but it just sounds so silly. I wonder if this is playing... I don't think this plays well with the audience. If he's... I'm just thinking on an optical point of view. Because the Tate defenders are all going to be conservative. When you start pulling out, like, the race card, I don't think conservatives are going to typically play favorably to that.
An amount of evidence where you know you can prosecute or convict is something that we will speak out about, and it's wrong. So it's not just the Romanian system. I said Romania, US, UK, France, whichever country is detaining people with only based on minimal level of evidence, which is reasonable suspicion, is completely inappropriate, unacceptable, and we will speak out against it irrespective of who's being detained. And so we have that in Guantanamo Bay, when significant amounts of people from the Muslim community who are being detained without due process based on reasonable suspicion and have never been to trial.
Do you think that Guantanamo Bay, a military prison set up outside of the United States in order to maintain like foreign prisoners or terrorists, like people without uniforms, do you think that...
I don't think Guantanamo Bay ever housed... I took a guess here because I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think Guantanamo Bay housed domestic U.S. citizens, right? Guantanamo Bay was only for ununiformed enemy combatants, right? Am I wrong on that? I took a stab in the dark on this. I think that's true. Guantanamo Bay Wikipedia. Wait, no, I want the... Tire suspected says Islamic terrorist groups which are connected to these things were not afforded POW status or facing formal charges. Okay, gotcha. All right.
That's comparable to what's happening right now in the Romanian criminal court system?
So you make a fair point because it's not comparable in the sense of the time length, because some of them have spent 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's comparable in the sense of the aspect of... And so I'd give that as an extreme example. That's an example. But also people get detained for like 14 days, 28 days, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months without it. All of that is unacceptable. So
okay, but to be clear, when you say unacceptable, you mean to you. It's not violating any international law. You just personally don't like it.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Well, when I say I personally don't like it, I think it's something that as someone who is a member of the community of the world, irrespective of what it is, and because you don't experience it, you probably don't realize, but it's a major issue for all of us, and it has been for 20 years.
That's fine, but we haven't been talking about it for 20 years. We've been talking about it for the past 3 months, really, with the Andrew Tate case.
Well, we've been talking about it for 20 years.
Sure, I'm sure some people have.
Yeah.
If you want to have a personal...
I should have personally investigated, because like, especially, no offense, but if this guy's Islamic and he's defending like a lot of like Islamic stuff, I wonder if this guy's ever been calling out like Muslim majority countries for unfair legal systems. I feel like the answer is probably not. Now, I can't just guess that in the middle of a debate, but I wonder, have you actually been focusing on human rights violations in Muslim majority countries? I doubt it, but maybe he has been.
Issue with how some people do detainments without, I guess, meeting a certain threshold of, publicly available evidence. I think that's an interesting conversation to have, but I'm pretty sure that this particular thing has to do with the Andrew Tate case, and these particular opinions have to do with opinions about the legal system, not whether or not it's actually violating international law. So I don't like the framing of, I don't think this is fair, therefore it violates statements or guidelines by the European Commission, or it's violated, right? Yeah.
That wasn't my point. So,
okay.
Because you're conflating my 2 points. So my point was about reasonable suspicion, specifically why I have a problem with it. Very clear that did not break international law. I actually said it didn't. My proof of why it breaks international law, I cited Article 5, and I'm going to cite another 5, 6 more legislations what it breaks. That hasn't got to do with reasonable suspicion. That's got to do with evidence.
Okay. So
first one was Article 5.1, which says that basically the prosecution has a duty to provide. So, for example, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, what happens is the prosecutor gains the information. And this is the same in Romania, where it should be according to Article 5.1 as well as according to international law. What the prosecutor does is he gets the information. He looks at it. Look, this is the strong points for my case, but actually these are the weak points because this proves the defendant's case. I'm going to collate all of that and give it to the prosecutor. So this, in this case, is DICOT. And then the prosecutor then makes a decision based on both of the evidence and decides, wait a sec, the evidence isn't strong enough. Because our case is weak at this point, I'm not going to take this forward to prosecute. And so in the United Kingdom, the prosecutor is called the CPS. I'm saying this, where he's contravened international law, Article 5.1, is he did not provide the evidence that weakens his own case to be able to prosecute. So that was my first point.
So you're saying they didn't give them the weaker part of the case too. So when you mentioned CCTV footage of what?
Right, so CCTV footage is imperative. It basically shows, it'll give us a very good window into understanding, were these women detained? Were they controlled? Were they let out? It won't give us the full scope, but it'll give us a significant scope. Both inside and outside, they have the CCTV. They also had CCTV in the house where the girls were living. None of that has been included.
Wait, so they didn't include the CCTV footage that was actually in the house when the girls were living there?
That's right. And so,
Oh, wow.
and the defense wants to include it, and that's going to be. I'm going to explain why that violates other articles within international law, which is then incorporated into Romanian law.
I don't think they have to. I don't think there's an obligation for the court to include every single piece of evidence.
It's international law.
No, hold on.
Sorry.
I should have been more precise here. They don't have to include every piece of evidence. If there's something that might become exculpatory, which means something that would like let's say somebody's accusing you of killing someone at a bar, and then the prosecution finds out that they've got like rock solid video evidence that you are like at a different time, at the same time, a different place or whatever, and they don't provide that. That would be exculpatory. It's like, this is evidence that's proving you didn't commit the crime. If you don't provide that, then you're operating in bad faith, right? And you can get in trouble for that. Something that would obviously exonerate you from a crime. But you don't have to provide neutral evidence, and you don't provide evidence that wouldn't necessarily be exculpatory. You don't have to provide all of that. If they thought that the CCTV stuff wasn't exculpatory, then they don't necessarily have to provide that. Now, I should find out the extent to which they spoke to the judge about that evidence, but the idea that like every piece of evidence has to be turned over to the judge, that's not true.
Include every single piece of evidence that we would want the defense to include, right? At some point, I'm pretty sure that their goal is to just balance out whether or not a future investigation is likely to lead to some sort of criminal charge. It's not to present the entirety of the defense's case.
Wait, hold on. Yes, U.S. grand juries to determine whether to charge someone is only a one-sided presentation where you only hear the prosecutor's evidence, and none of that helps the defense, even exculpatory evidence. My understanding, Ukushi, is even in the United States, exculpatory evidence has to be considered from the prosecution side before any charge, even before a court case has actually happened. I used to think, I said this before, and then another legal dude emailed me. I thought that the prosecution just has to prove their case, and that's it. Like, you just have to build the strongest case you can. But apparently there are, I think it's laws that say that like your legal system has to operate in good faith. That like if there's clearly evidence that saves you from a particular thing or exonerates you from a particular crime you're being charged with, that the legal system has an obligation to take note of that before like filing charges and stuff. Yeah, I don't know if that was the Brady rule or not necessarily, but.
Case at that point in time to see if they can dismiss the charges. It's just to see if there's enough to detain them there for the investigation to continue, meaning they're going to begin to, or they're already in the process of.
I need to find and watch the CCTV footage. I've only heard descriptions of it. I think we've watched clips of it, but from everything that I've heard about the CCTV footage, it's not exculpatory at all. It's only exculpatory to like the 15 IQ like red pillars, where like, oh, like clearly this woman wasn't sex trafficked because she's dancing at their house. And it's like, okay, that's not that doesn't prove anything one way or another. But yeah. Did you get emails on him being a fraud? Wait, what? Oh, I don't know if I care about this, but.
Subpoenaing electronic records and devices and going through chat logs and everything. And the judge, insofar as the statements he's released, has felt like there are significant enough claims, and I think publicly, I think we can all see that it warrants detaining them, especially given that they're a flight risk, so that the investigation can conclude. And it might be at the end of that investigation they decide, well, there's nothing going on here, and then they release them. But I think right now what we've seen publicly is we've all seen there's plenty enough evidence out there to say it's probably something here that's worth investigating.
That's not correct, because the reason why they have this process is because you can give someone who's been accused of a crime due process. He's given an opportunity to present the evidence, and then the CPS makes the decision. The reason for that is because everybody knows if you have a scenario in any kind of system where the prosecutor only provides positive evidence to try.
Something that's very frustrating, I don't know what to do for this. I have to tell people that I'm not going to agree to debates, the long-form debates. I don't like them at all. I want a back-and-forth conversation. It was really hard not to say something here. When he's saying...
the evidence, and then the CPS makes the decision. They have this process is because you can give someone who's been accused of a crime due process. He's given an opportunity to present the evidence, and then the
when we talk about due process and opportunity to present the evidence, like this is shit that happens like in trial, like at court. like you're not going to have, I don't think in any U.S. criminal procedure or any probably country in the world, pre-trial is not you're giving all the evidence to the judge and the prosecution is giving all the evidence. You're that's not part of your, I don't think it's part of your due process. And the idea that, because that's just going to court, that's just trial at that point. But it's frustrating. It's very frustrating not to be able to go back and forth and instead have to do these really long-winded, these huge back and forths where you gotta like keep track of all the points, and it feels like you don't make much progress. It's very frustrating. What about discovery? Where's my legal dudes? Discovery is different. Discovery, I think, is discovery is once a charge has already been filed, and then both sides are collecting evidence to make their case. That's discovery. And whatever evidence you're going to bring up in court has to be made available to the other side. But that's part of the trial process. I don't believe you wouldn't call an investigation discovery. I don't think. I've got a couple legal flags here. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But like discovery is part of the trial process, not part of the investigatory process, I believe.
EPS makes the decision. The reason for that is because everybody knows.
Oh, okay. This guy said you are correct. I've watched 4 seasons of Better Call Saul. Thank you.
If you have a scenario in any kind of system where the prosecutor only provides positive evidence to try and prosecute, and he doesn't provide the evidence that weakens his case, you will end up in trial no matter what. And then what will happen is everybody knows, even if you're innocent, trial risk could go wrong. And
I should have. This is hard too. I need to like super ultra read to be legal expert mode here, but like, I don't believe that you have to provide all the evidence that would weaken your case. You just have to provide, if there's exculpatory evidence, you have to provide that. But just like random piece of evidence you find that may or may not or whatever that are kind of neutral, I don't think you have to provide every single piece of evidence as a prosecutor, or you have to go digging for all of that evidence as a prosecutor. Basically, I think like the gist of it, I think the spirit of the law is that like, okay, well, we walked in this dude's house, he was bloody, holding a knife, his wife was bloody, we asked some questions, we did like an investigation, we didn't come across anything crazy. It's not like they've got to go digging like, okay, we need to go talk to his friends. We need to find this guy an alibi. You don't have to do the defendant's work for him. I don't think that's on the onus of the state. You just have to make sure you're not operating in bad faith. Again, you show up at the house and you find out that like, you find out when you get there that like the guy was like sleeping, and he's got like a security camera footage that you review, and he was sleeping the whole time. His wife like fell down the stairs and tripped on a knife, and you don't bring that up to the judge. That would be bad, because now as part of your initial investigation, you found something that is clearly exculpatory. The guy couldn't have murdered her. He was sleeping, right?
And you could go to jail. Hence why they have these things in place to ensure that doesn't happen, and more innocent people aren't incarcerated. And I know you're from the United States, where there's a huge amount of incarcerations, more than anyone per capita around the world, as well as, for example, in the United States, you have much more black people, Hispanic people, 300% more, who have been incarcerated. So again, this is an example of another black man who's basically been incarcerated sorry, you laughed. Do you not agree?
I don't know. I don't think this has anything to do with black men or whatever that's being incarcerated. I don't know why that's even. I don't know why that got brought up.
It does, because basically you're ignoring the fact that he's in Eastern Europe. It's basically has a significant amount of issues in terms of race issues.
It also has a significant amount of issues in terms of sex trafficking.
Yeah, well, it has. Well, and we will talk about that. But in terms of the significant amount of race issues, significant amount of Islamophobia, you have a scenario where this country has not allowed any kind of dark immigrants into their country, but now they've changed that for Ukrainian immigrants and allowed a significant amount in.
I love all of the. This is where I kind of roll my. I don't think I actually roll my eyes, but I'm rolling my eyes a little bit. This is where he gets so. There's so. Do you see? I'm curious. Do you guys see when people like start loading a whole bunch of like ideological, like we're taking shots at like the Ukraine war out of everything here, like just randomly thrown into this? It's like so bizarre that he would like take it to so many weird places.
You've got a significant amount of history of Islamophobia. So of course, when a black man.
Hold on.
Crafting.
Where the f is he right now? Is this even a speed run? Oh!
What
the fuck?
Back to the VOG.
What did I hit? Why was I so far away from the wall?
Muslim gets incarcerated immediately after he's converted to Islam. I think.
How long has the investigation been going on for? Since April, at least.
Well, they claim the investigation's been going on for April. We don't know exactly. It's going to be interesting to see when the evidence comes out, what evidence comes out. But what we do know is he was.
Just curious,
incarcerated.
is there a single shred of evidence to point to anybody at any point of this process being either as racist or Islamophobic?
I've just explained to you examples of how Romania has demonstrated that. And also, I'm going to demonstrate to you throughout this process how, for example, people are not understanding that.
Can you explain how you believe in systemic racism in the US, but it's somehow impossible in Eastern Europe? No, I'm sure there is systemic racism in Eastern Europe. But you have to show that racism is involved, right? Maybe I need to be, no, I am clear on this when I say this shit. I said it when those officers killed the one dude. The 5 black officers killed the other guy. I didn't, people were saying that was racist. I don't think there's any proof of racism there, was it? I don't know if there was any racism in the George Floyd case. I don't know if that had anything to do with racism. I never saw any evidence of that Chauvin or any of the officers were racist. Now, maybe there was some and I never heard about it. Maybe they were making weird comments on Facebook, but I never saw any evidence of that. No, I don't know. I think it's just kind of silly to assume things are racist without seeing any evidence of that. Like,
that a lot of the comments he makes is based on his heritage, is based on his background or where he comes from, something which I understand you may not understand based on your upbringing and you know, being a white man.
Sure. So let me ask that one more time. Is there a single shred of evidence that anybody has participated in any Islamophobia or racism in regards to the Andrew Tate case?
No. I've just given you an example of Romania having a significant amount of racism. Well, I think it'll be harsh to call it racism, but is a significant indicator if you're not letting people who have dark.
He takes so many personal shots at me like this. It's so fucking funny. I think I might call it out at the end, but it just feels so weird. I don't even know what to.
Dark color into your country, but you're letting people of white color into your country. I think that says a lot.
Okay, so I'll ask a third time, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. You have no evidence of any Islamophobia or racism present in the Tate case.
I've just given you evidence.
You're telling me that the country as a whole maybe have had problems with racism, but in this particular case, I'm curious if there's any, like in the United States, if something happens and a cop was racist, we might look for like a statement that the cop has made. You wouldn't just say that like, wow, a black guy got arrested, that's racism, right? But you're saying that in the case of Andrew Tate, because he got arrested, it's racism and Islamophobia. So I'm curious if there's any evidence of that whatsoever.
No. What I'm saying is, when you look at the scenario, there is the significant issues when it comes to the fact that he is a black man and he is just converted to Islam and he's incarcerated in an Eastern European country. To ignore that is ridiculous, and I'll explain why. Because this is a scenario where if you ignore the issues of race, if you ignore the issues of someone's heritage, which is happening a lot in this case, because I know, and we're going to talk about some of the videos that you're complaining about, then you can basically break it into the bare bones and look at literalism and convict anyone of anything. But it's illogical. You have to look at the background. You have to look at the history of the person.
Sure.
In reality, when you take all them things into consideration, they have a significant impact. Look, this is quite simple. Because you can give these examples, and obviously you have to generalize them. This is a scenario where, let's be clear, it's a person who's a black man who's being, again, accused of rape or human trafficking of essentially white women, and being incarcerated in an Eastern European country without enough evidence. I mean, that takes me back.
According to
that takes me back to, for example, the United States in the when this type of things were happening in the plantation and KKK.
Okay. We've got Romanian judges, KKK,
so wild.
Andrew Tate, black man.
No, you can minimize it, but the issue is...
Well, not minimize it.
But let's talk about this. There's a significant...
Hold on, you just did a whole thing. Well, just real quick,
Can I just make one point?
Well,
just
you
one
say like 7 points.
Because basically, you have a significant issue where black people are being accused of rape by white people, and it's happened significantly throughout the West. You've seen it now with Benjamin Mendy. You saw it with Greenwood footballers who were accused, and now after losing so many years of their life, they've finally been let out. So to think that this is not happening subconsciously or consciously is an issue.
Okay, so just this is a personal feeling that I have. I think that when we pivot to other cases, I feel like it's because we know that this case is very weak. If you want to talk about racism that exists in the United States or racism that exists in particular cases, I'm free to do that at any point in time. But right now we're talking specifically about the Andrew Tate case. Andrew Tate is a man that has released an entire university guide on how to be a pimp, on how to seduce women and get them to work for you, and how to sex traffic, on how to scam them on taxes, on how to do all of these things. He's had charges in multiple countries relating to rape. He's had charges in Romania now relating to his entire business relating to sex trafficking. To try to handwave all of this and go Islamophobia and racism would be okay if we had even one iota of evidence, a statement that a prosecutor made, a statement that a judge has made, any type of evidence like this. But right now we don't have any of that. So I can only go by what I've seen in front of me.
So then based on that, then you deny.
I should have reiterated like this is your feeling. I thought we were talking about facts. He uses that line a lot. I should have used it here.
institutional racism, because you can never have a scenario where you can use specific evidence for generalization. But the whole point is we use generalization to we show many examples to then say, look, this is a general issue. So that's
you
the
might
first
use
point.
generalization. If you want to talk about generalization, that's
fine.
fine. But we use generalization to talk about general issues. We don't use generalization to talk about a particular issue.
You not at all. What happens is you use specific issues to create a generalization, and then said generalization is used for subsequent issues. That's actually how it works. In terms of
what he just described as racism, right? If I were to do what he just did, it would be racism. Like, oh, well, I figure out a few specific things, and then I generalize those things, and then I use those generalizations to make decisions about all specific things. That's like the justification for all bigotry ever, right? Like, okay, well, a Muslim guy or a black guy did this or that. I'm going to generalize that to all people. Now, anytime a particular instance comes up, I'm going to say, oh, they're guilty because of that generalization. I mean, it's a really silly.
Coming back to the point, because you made quite a lot of points in terms of the allegations again, because this is another problem what we have, and because we're on the race issue, let's talk about it. So you have a scenario where you've basically got a guy who comes from Luton, England, who's basically got a background in, look, he was basically, if you give an American comparable, he's basically from the ghetto. He has a scenario where people from that kind of upbringing are talking in very much slang, humor, ghetto.
All of these arguments are so bad. I'm surprised that he went to any of these places. They're just like, they're comically bad arguments.
Type talk, oh, I'm a gangster, I'm a G, I did this, I did that, that girl, that, this, that, all that kind of stuff. So that's how they talk. Then to say, oh, guess what? He's talked like that, therefore he must have done these things. He's calling women like this. He's saying that he's done this. He said he's done fraud. All of these things are hugely problematic in the sense of you're basically removing his history and heritage. Now, I understand as a white man, you may not understand the background and heritage and these type of things that he's going through. But the issue is, that's quite important. Do you not agree?
No.
Why not?
Because me being white or black or whatever has nothing to do with him giving a detail. Now, I'm going to be honest, okay?
Yeah.
I've only been in London a few times, okay? Now, I haven't walked in some of the roughest parts, but maybe there are parts where you walk around and they're talking about how the top G's do tax fraud on their employees. Maybe that's just a way of speaking. But if it is a way of speaking,
why did he detail it? He actually noticed that that's true. Wait, what are you talking? It's such a silly, ridiculous argument. Why would you even try this?
To an incredible level, and you have a business where you claim to do that, and you put that out on videos on social media, and then you go to jail for it. Yeah, you're probably going to get in trouble.
So let me
finish responding. Okay, your entire point that this is just a way of talking is ridiculous. It is absurd. He has listed exactly a step-by-step guide on how he loverboys girls into his sex trafficking business. He uses actual prostitution terms like bottom bitch to describe his relationship to some of the employees that he has. He talks about bringing women into his company to work them as sex traffic models, and then he specifically talks about defrauding them using taxes to steal money from them. I think it's a little bit racist of you to say that that's just how people from Luton, England or whatever talk, or that's how they function. I don't believe that.
Here's a tip that I had that's a really good tip for your writing. I've implemented this for years. No, I think I learned this in college. I think it came from that string right. I need to implement it in my speaking, at least for debates. I think you should eliminate all of these statements. Yeah, I just did it right there. You should eliminate all of these statements from your speaking when you're trying to be persuasive. All they do is undermine your confidence in your point. It's never, ever, ever worth it. If you're writing a speech or if you're giving a speech, you never say, I think that we should do this. No, we should do this. I believe that it's not right that this guy did that. No, it's not right that this guy did that. You should always eliminate those from your speaking. I do that in debates sometimes. I'm so used to caveating on stream. I need to just stop caveating too. I don't think half you fucking retards even watch my fucking stream. You guys post the wildest shit on my subreddit. I don't even know why I bother caveating. Holy shit.
That is the case.
Okay, so I'll answer your question. So no, again, your point is actually doesn't make sense and it doesn't follow. It's non sequitur, and I'll explain why. The reason is because when you look at what he said online, again, you gave the example of bottom bitch and so on and so forth. That's basically slang. That's how people talk, and that's what you're not understanding. In terms of, let's look at your example, which is completely ridiculous, because what you're saying is, guess what? He said this online, therefore he should be convicted based on it. Online,
I never said that.
Well, that's the inference you're making. Basically, online, you gave this example. You said he's trying to defraud them, because online, what he actually said was this in that video, because I know the video you're referring to. He says in the same video, he says, oh, I'm going to take all the money. In the same video, he says, I'm going to give 50-50. In the same video, he says, I'm going to give 70-30 because, 20%.
Does he say that all in that video? I watched, I think, a good 30 or 40 minute chunk from that talk in front of the fireplace. I don't remember him saying any of that, but I'm wondering if it's cut from an even larger video where he said that. I can't really call it out because I don't have it in front of me, but...
I'm going to tell us for tax purposes, but then I ain't going to pay the taxes, and hence why you're making the claim for fraud. The point is this. From the court documents, which I'm sure you've read, none of that is in there. In the court documents, what it actually says is complete opposite. What it says is, and this is the worst one, so this is the worst woman, she says, I receive 50%, he receives 25%, so she receives double of what he receives. So that is nothing got to do with, or has no links to the video. So and she doesn't mention anything about being defrauded of taxes because she's receiving the full 50, she's receiving 50%. So what you're claiming is, guess what? I don't care about what the court documents say. I don't care what the witness is saying. But guess what? In a video, he said this, and therefore he should be convicted based on the video. No, there's only two explanations for the video because the court documents don't add up to what the video says. Either he was exaggerating and talking in this kind of slang language is what I'm trying to explain. So he was exaggerating. Or it could be, which is a possibility, that it was so long ago that he did engage in those practices and no longer does. But what we know is, in this case, what he's been charged for, what he's been held for, he hasn't been charged yet. So what he's been arrested for, no one says that.
Okay. So I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people that have only watched clips of Andrew Tate, which is fair. And I think that a lot of people say a lot of dumb things about him because they've only seen clips, which is also not fair. I think people shouldn't do that. But I think you're relying on me having only seen clips. So you're trying to pass this off as slang. When he used that phrase, bottom bitch, he wasn't passing it off as slang. He was very specifically detailing bringing girls that were in love with him over to dinner where he would introduce them to his youngest working, or one of his younger working models, a woman that he met at 16 that had been working with him for 5 years, is now 21, and how he would use her to mislead the...
Do you think this guy's going to take content long term? Maybe. I really don't like, and the well is a little poison because obviously I don't like Andrew Tate, right? And I'm sure people know that. But I don't see how any reasonable person can listen to Andrew Tate's stuff and be like, this guy's probably not a sex trafficker. I don't see how anybody, it feels very obvious when you listen to it. Unless you really want to take the position of, I think he's lying about everything he's saying, in which case, I don't know how you discern lies from the truth, but it's pretty obvious that he's like a trafficker. It's like, especially now after having watched a lot of his longer form videos, it's painfully obvious that he's a trafficker.
Relationship that they had so that she could get the girl the new...
Why isn't the fact that the Tate girls' passports are taken from them, it's always glossed over? That would explain why they would go for runs and return. Ray in YouTube chat. So the thing about Andrew Tate stealing passports from women, that piece of evidence was on Twitter from a guy leaking a chat conversation between him and Andrew Tate, I think. But I've never seen that corroborated anywhere else. I haven't seen prosecution documents corroborate that. I've heard other people corroborate that. So I don't use that as evidence. I don't know if that's actually true or not. When I'm building cases against stuff like this, I'd like to use the best evidence possible, because if you start using weak pieces of evidence, people can just attack that, and then your whole case looks weak. Like what I do to this guy when he brings up like racism and Islamophobia and stuff. But I just haven't seen good evidence that they were taking people's passports. Maybe they do. Maybe that evidence is out there and I just haven't seen it yet, or maybe that'll come out in court. But
new one that was brought in into working as a cam girl. This is prostitute behavior. This is pimping behavior. This is exactly what it is. When he says bottom bitch here, he's not just using slang in a funny way to talk about a girl that's a friend of his that also works as her girlfriend. He's literally detailing step by step the process by how he would deceive and mislead, which are key components of sex trafficking, a new woman that he's brought in with another woman. He would mislead the extent of their relationship, and then he would use that to get her to go and be a cam girl. So that is not slang.
Right.
Wait, let me finish. That's
Bro,
not slang.
You just talk for ages, but okay, I'll make those points.
Hold on. I didn't talk for ages.
I'm literally trying to respond point by point. This is why I don't like the really long back and forth. I might actually be talking long. I'm not sure. It's hard to keep track of it. I hate the 7 points and then 7 7 points. I hate this format so much. It's so god awful.
Yeah, this you just I just spent like half the time.
Okay,
I literally
no, just
wrote
go,
down
keep
2
going,
points.
keep
I
going.
am
I'll
going.
let you go.
I go
Okay.
nonstop. Okay, so it is not a slang thing. Secondly, you're bringing up this thing that the witness says they got 50%. That is not what the witness said. The witness said that originally there might have been an agreement where it was a 50-25-25 split, but the witness also said that they were randomly dinged for different charges that made it so that they didn't get that payout. For instance, if you didn't stream the full 12 hours, you might be fined like 1,000 to 4,000, whatever the Roman, or whatever the Romanian currency is.
I always want to call it Romani currency, but careful. I wish I could find that. I wish I could find that number. The women who have been detained into sex trafficking probe along the Tates skimmed off half the OnlyFans revenue and fined women for being late or sniffling on camera, according to court documents. I thought I read that the fines were, I thought I read 5,000 something. I don't know if it was euros or I don't know if it was Romanian currency or what, but maybe that number is out there. It's something.
And that there were a lot of things where, because one of the claims was they had to work 12-hour shifts with a 5-minute break, and if they didn't work enough there, the witness also said that if they didn't post enough on OnlyFans, they didn't post enough TikToks, that they also were dinged their pay as well. So while on paper, it might have been a 50...
Was it 4,000 euros? The alleged victim continued working to a strict schedule, staying live on TikTok for 12 hours, only a 5-minute break, with the defendants forcing her to earn a minimum of 10,000 euro a month and threatening to beat her if she didn't perform her job. Here it is. The so-called fines were imposed by the defendants if the girls did not post to OnlyFans, the documents claim, with one witness owing at the time the sum of 4,000 euro. So that's how much she owed. Maybe that wasn't an individual fine, but... I like how he selectively quotes from the women too. I wonder if I should have... I should be like a Binder Andy, like that one dude. If I could like organize like a briefcase and have like all of these, because he picks and chooses from the women so much, where he'll say like, so here, in a separate piece of testimony, another witness working on the TikTok and OnlyFans platforms for several months in 2021 without a contract on a schedule set by one of the defendants, saying that she was allowed to keep 50% of her earnings, with the remaining 50% divided between the Tate brothers and their alleged manager. So he quotes her, and he takes her quote at face value. See, she said she got a 50-50 split. What I should have said following up on that, but I didn't know that this woman had made that same statement. What I should have said following up was like, yeah, but she also said she wasn't allowed to leave the location unless she was accompanied. So, and that's a pretty big part of sex trafficking, is not being allowed to leave. So are you going to believe her when she says that she got a 50-50 split, but not believe her when she says she couldn't leave unaccompanied? Or are you going to believe everything she said and admit that, oof, that sounds like sex trafficking, right? That would be a rough spot to stick him in. I think when you're... I don't care. It sounds mean to say, but I think it's true. If you're taking the more honest side of a debate, you have to do like 2x the homework, because oftentimes your opponent's nuance bro is really good at this. People will just engage in flagrant bad faith. I think that even they know they're selectively choosing and quoting because they know their case is weak. And if a person is willing to engage in that, you've got to go above and beyond in researching everything, because they're not going to, you can't trust their research to be done responsibly, because they're just there to try to get owns, basically.
50 split. We have the issues where the witness is saying that they've lost some of it due to being fined, and we also have the fact that Andrew Tate on video has talked about how to defraud the women with their taxes, and we have another statement of him saying that he also oftentimes just bills in cryptocurrency, which is impossible to track. The woman would have no idea if she's...
Is it trafficking to have someone perform a concert on a schedule and fine them? Well, if they perform the concert nude, and the only reason that they're singing is because you said you'd marry them and you move them to another country, and then after they moved there, you had other band members lie about their relationship with you and then convince them to do singing while nude? Yeah, it might be.
is getting that or not.
Right. So again, this statement that you've relayed is inaccurate. So the woman who said that 50%, 25%, 25%, she didn't.
Is there a way we could pull this up on screen, the document that you guys are talking about? Do you know what it's called?
It's on some website.
You know what I could do is I could prepare a Google Doc ahead of time and ship it to like Pearl and be like, hey, here's like the stuff I want to be able to show on screen. And actually, I could get away with this because I can even email it to my debate opponent. I say, hey, by the way, this is what I'm going to use for the debate. You can look through it, and then I'll shoot it to like whoever's moderating the debate as well. Is the dude destined debating really a lawyer? No.
Like spy something is in Romanian. You
Oh,
gotta
it's in
translate.
It's in
Yeah,
Romanian.
Yeah.
You didn't bring a Romanian translator? Are you
Sorry.
even trying?
I
thought this was a serious show.
So
Jesus.
how did you read it then? The document. You got it.
Someone translated it and then.
Oh,
put it online,
okay.
But I don't know about that.
I
It's
learned
on Facebook.
Romanian.
You learned Romanian.
No, I have Romanian friends. You can also use Google Translate on this other thing too, yeah.
I'll pull it down, okay? Because we could also pull up the video you guys were talking about too.
So in terms of what you're saying, that's not right because the woman who claimed 50% never claimed that she ever got fined. I can say that without doubt. What she's claiming is other women were fined and their percentage was.
So like, this is what I mean when I say he's clearly operating in bad faith. What he's saying is true. She wasn't the one that said that she got fined. It was another person. But if he knows that quote, he should also know that she also said that she wasn't allowed to leave unaccompanied. But why doesn't he bring that up? Why isn't he providing exculpatory evidence like he expects the prosecution to, yeah. But like that's evidence to where it's like, you've done the research on this. If you know specifically which girl was making which quote, wow, you know like pretty specifics about this. But then why didn't you know, or why not bring up the fact that she said she wasn't allowed to leave unaccompanied, right?
Is much higher. So that's not right.
She wouldn't know. She would never.
No,
even
so
see-
she's saying,
Wait.
this is the problem. She's saying, I never got fined. I got 50% because you're trying to make it look like this. And this is what you're trying to portray. You're trying to portray this point. She got 50%, then she got fined. So therefore, the percentage reduced. That's basically what you're trying
Can
to
you
portray.
explain-
But what she said was, no, I got 50%. She never got fined. Other women who allegedly got a bigger percentage were fined. That's what it was.
I didn't see anything about other people getting a bigger percentage who got fined. I like how he's trying to make the fines acceptable here too. It was kind of silly, but
That's not true. But I'm
That is
just
true.
curious. How would she know she got 50%?
Sorry?
How would she know she got 50%?
Well, she said she got 50%.
I'm asking you how she would know.
How would she know if she didn't?
I'm going by Andrew Tate's statements to figure out what was paid or not. And Andrew Tate himself has said that he would try to scam the models. But I'm curious.
the correct answer to that, what I should have immediately said is, because you see what you get paid on OnlyFans. I jumped a step ahead, but the reason why you would know if you're getting 50% is because OnlyFans shows you what you get paid, and then you pay a cut to the agency. I don't know why I didn't say that. That was the obvious answer there. I think I just jumped ahead because it's like, that's obvious. Typically, people are taking a cut of your earnings, but you see like what you're getting paid and everything from the companies that are paying you. But in the Tate's case, they've specifically said that their talent isn't allowed to access any of their shit. They don't know their financials. They don't see any of those statements. They're not even allowed to look at their fucking Instagram DMs. So of course they don't know that.
No.
Didn't he say-
This is the problem, you see, because again, and another point is this. When you said you used the bottom bitch method, and he used a woman to Laura and get another woman. There's no woman who's up until now, out of the victims whose information we have, no woman has claimed that occurred. So no woman has said that Andrew Tate took her for dinner, brought her bottom bitch, and then tried to lure her and convince her and then make her go abroad. No one has said that.
Well, we don't even know that. Fuck, this is another point that I want to fight on. He keeps saying that no one has said this, no one has done this, no one has done this. The prosecution might have that evidence, and that hasn't been released to the public yet. I don't think there's anything. He runs with this assumption that I don't call out more. This assumption that like every single piece of evidence the prosecution has is made public at this point. I don't think that's true. I've never seen anything that shows me leads me to believe that that's true. And he flies with this assumption for the entire conversation. I say that later. Okay, yeah, maybe we're doing it.
They all have said that they all went abroad based on their own interaction with the Tates, and there was no other woman involved in trying to lure them.
How many, do you know how many people right now are filed as injured persons, I think, for the case? Well,
Yes.
It's 8, right?
7.
Are you sure? I thought it was 6, and then they added 2 more.
Let me see the boom, boom, boom. Let me see if I can find this. I read this for the conversation. There are at least 8 victims involved at this point, including the 2 that said they were not victims. There are at least 6 different victims that have made complaints to the police. Maybe I should have looked. I should have just looked up every single victim. That's what I should have done. Fuck. I need more preparation for this. What would proper preparation be? I'm trying to think, like, what's realistic? Would it be realistic for me in a debate to know every single victim, every single statement that every single victim had made, and every single statement every single victim hadn't made? So if he's going to say, well, this victim said that, is it realistic for me to be able to say, like, oh yeah, well, that victim also said this? I don't know how much this is one thing of, like, having, like, a document that I, like, shoot to the producer. I don't know if it's realistic for me to have all of that in my head. I don't know if I can do that. If I'm having to keep track of the facts on, like, both ends of the argument. I don't think anything I've heard so far is unreasonable for me to have known in advance. Like, I could have memorized all the points so far, I think. But only, like, but it would have been, I would have had to memorize way more to get all these so far. I'm not sure.
It was 6, they've added 1 more.
Okay, so it's either 7 or 8. How many women worked with him?
What do you mean?
Didn't he say at one point that he had up to 75 women working at one time?
That's what the website says. But
Okay.
again, this is the problem. So he did say that. One can assume, because you're right, he did say that. I'm not going to deny that. He said that basically, I had 75 women working for me and that we could get rich together. He did say that.
Okay.
In terms of what the court information says, it doesn't say anything related to that. In terms of the BBC documentary, they try and portray the fact that it's actually a very small operation and there was hardly any women.
Has the prosecution...
Is that true? Did we watch that? I know we watched the Vice one. I think we watched parts of the BBC one. Did we watch the whole BBC one? Did they ever say it was just a small operation? I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Like, can I just say, like, no, they didn't? I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say it was ever just a small operation. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that. Destiny's literally gonna have to spend hours plus prepping for this shit. Well, but I mean, it's good. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with spending a lot of time preparing for stuff.
Leaked every piece of evidence that they have?
Sorry?
Has the prosecution leaked all of the evidence that they had?
No, they haven't. So what they've leaked, no, they haven't. So what they've leaked is this. So what we know about, and then I'll explain to you what they've leaked. So what we have is the witness statement of the women, right? We have the psych report. Do you think the psych report's acceptable?
I do, yeah.
You do. Why do you think it's acceptable?
It was done by a professional. What else can I go by?
So you think it's acceptable that a psych report was done on the US Moldovan woman, and then based on that psych report, the psychologist made a judgment that all the other women are brainwashed. So Jasmine and Beatrice, she never saw them, she never met them, she never did a psychiatric report on them, and just based on them girls' words, she decided that they were brainwashed. Do you think that's how?
This is the whole point of an expert witness. I didn't communicate this well at all. The one law student guy emailed me this. Expert witnesses, the psychologist. Lastly, your debate opponent stressed how the psychologist being used by the prosecution was making conclusions about women that the psychologist did not directly analyze. In the United States, lay witnesses and expert witnesses are completely different. He links to Rule 701, Rule 702, but for federal rules of evidence. There is a lot of case law about the difference between the two types of witnesses, but the main difference is that lay witnesses can only speak about that which they have foundation to speak on. In other words, things they personally experienced directly and opinions and conclusions that were reached from their own personal experience. On the other hand, expert witnesses, once they lay the foundation about their field of expertise, how it works, all the formulas, and anything else they use in their field, they can then opine about things they did not see, hear, smell, touch, taste directly or personally by applying all of that knowledge towards a particular situation. At its most simplest, expert witnesses are allowed to extrapolate what they know to the specific case at hand, whereas lay witnesses cannot. Thus, assuming Romania has something similar, I see nothing wrong with a psychologist, presumably an expert witness, extrapolating their knowledge to the Andrew Tate situation. I kind of say this, but I think sloppier, the ending part at least, but...
That's how. Do you think that's acceptable?
I don't know the extent to which you can guess the other one. Why have we moved on to the psych report? Why do we jump from
No, because you asked for the evidence. That was the second evidence.
Well, no, I was asking, you seem to be very confidently stating that the presence of the bottom bitch, that hasn't been mentioned by any other woman or any other person.
That's right.
But how do we know the prosecution isn't planning on bringing that up at trial?
Well, we could look. We only base on things on what information we have right now. The information.
I hate these long back and forths. If we're only basing this on what we have right now, then you can't say that this evidence doesn't exist. You can only say it hasn't been presented yet. He plays a lot of really tricky word games here that it's so hard to, it's very easy when you're going back and forth to stop that. Nope, don't. But when I have to respond in long form and somebody plays so many word games, it's so difficult to keep up with them all. I don't know if I should just not do debates in this format anymore, where I'm like, we have to have a back and forth. It can't be this long-winded back and forth, because he's so sneaky with a lot of things that he says.
The information we have right now is we know there's a witness statement, we know there's a psych report, we have the two.
Because he's trying to say that, like, we don't have that evidence in front of us right now, which I agree with, but it feels like he's jumping off that point and saying that evidence therefore doesn't exist. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. You have no idea about that. But you're making a claim, you're making a positive claim that I know for certain that this evidence does not exist. You know that. Really? You can't know that? And then in the next breath say, well, the prosecution hasn't turned it all over yet. We don't know what they have or do not have. That's contradictory, right?
Rulings that were leaked, and we also have what else we have? Some of the WhatsApps that were leaked, which
so
were,
I can't use. You're telling me I can't use any statement that Andrew Tate has made in any of his videos or websites. That's not fair game for me to use.
Look, you have to accept. Look, there could be a snap. I can take. Look, I was even gonna do a low below, and I actually took a snippet from your video where you said me and Lena are racist, but guess what? That was out of context. That was a joke you were making because you were being humorous, and there was context because you were having a joke with like somebody who was accusing you.
Sure,
of it.
but what is
my point? The point I'm trying to make is that would be unacceptable for me to use to then say you're racist. So in reality, what'll happen is this is what I think. This is in the scenario where I think it should be used and when it shouldn't be used.
I also don't like that he keeps trying to. He's relentless. He'll keep hammering the same point that I feel like I've dealt with a lot. Oh, Andrew Tate was just talking shit. Oh, he's just speaking shit, blah, blah, blah. If Andrew Tate was like on a podcast and he's just like, yeah, I'm a sex trafficker, wait, whatever, then okay, sure, yeah, that's fine, right? That doesn't mean anything. But when he's giving detailed breakdowns on what he does, like if I come on stream like, hey, yeah, I'm racist, guys, or whatever, and you're like, okay, whatever. As opposed to me coming on like, so when I was in high school, this is how I cheated in our school's computer system to mark down the grade of every single black person by 15 points, right? Well, if you're like, Destiny, that sounds kind of racist. You're like, oh, no. Like, I just like joke about it a lot. What do you mean? It's not a joke. You're like telling a detailed story about how you did something to fuck over a group of people based on their race. What's the joke, right? So it's like when Andrew Tate is giving these detailed breakdowns on how to run his pimping business, and this guy's like, oh, he's just joking. That's what people in London, that's what black people do. Like, what? What do you mean? I'm not talking about just short jokes he's saying. I'm talking about full videos I've watched where he like lays all this. He had a whole website on how to pimp. That was the whole Hustlers University.
So the scenario where a video evidence should be used is, let's say for example.
Why are you so flustered here? I just don't like the format. It's just it's a very hard format when he lays out so much bad shit over and over and over again. And I feel like it feels like I'm running around putting out fires that are like a bunch of those candles, the birthday candles that relight when you blow them out, and I'm like running around blowing these out over and over and over and over and over again. It's just very, very, very frustrating to deal with that in this format, I think.
For example, someone says, I killed Michael, and then you see Michael dead. You'd be like, okay, he said I've killed Michael online and Michael's dead. But if he says I've killed Michael, but then like Tony's dead, that doesn't mean.
Destiny, so the point is that you shouldn't feel so strongly about Tate either. You just don't have proof is all? I mean, I've seen him describe his pimping business. Literally, the only thing in my eyes that would exonerate him is if like people did research and I found he literally lied about almost every single thing he said. Which, by the way, I've already admitted is a possibility. Maybe he literally is the world's biggest fucking liar and he lied about fucking everything. Although I don't know how he made his millions of dollars then. But like maybe he did lie about everything. But like that's a really weird stance. You have to understand that at that point, you're the one with the exceptional stance, right? You're the one saying, whoa, hold on, Destiny. Literally 95% of what he said about his businesses online have been lies, Destiny, obviously. Like, okay.
I mean that just because he said he's going to murder someone, that he's murdered Tony. So the issue is this: whenever you're going to use something online, the specific usage has to be used. So when you're giving the example of the bottom bitch, there needs to be evidence that actually happened, and there's no evidence that happened based on
that
all
we've been presented with.
Yeah, that we've been presented with.
So,
but we've been presented.
I should have hammered that. Wait, say that again. That we've been presented with, because you keep saying there's no evidence. No. We're not at trial yet. This is just pretrial detention.
So I've done a significant amount of research on the Moldovan woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. I've done a significant amount of research on the US woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. Jasmine and Beatrice, the same thing. This UK, this woman number 7, the BBC did. She literally says, she actually explains how she went abroad, and it was based on her own decision, her introduction with Andrew.
It's so, the point this line of argumentation is just so stupid. Like we don't have 100% of the evidence. All I have are Tate's statements, but that's why trials exist, right? Is for people that can actually go and dig into evidence to give us like their findings. But like, yeah, I don't have this evidence right now. I'm not a prosecutor. I don't have the legal authority to subpoena Andrew Tate's records. I can't see that.
So we've got 5 women. So yeah, there is a small possibility that the other 2 women could say that happened. But right now, based on these 5 women, no.
Okay, so when you compare the joke about me making a small racist...
And now, this sucks. I reversed the process towards the end of the debate because I realized that, like, I need to respond to the last point made, not the first one in order, sequential order. Like, look at how much bullshit he's laid out here. And I'm going to go all the way back to do, like, this first point again. It just feels so stupid. Like, I think this is like, the strength of a Gish Gallop here, is that, like, when you lay out a bunch of shit and your opponent has to go back and, like, try to deconstruct every single point, he already looks like he has so much authority on the argument so far just because he's gotten to lay out so much shit unobstructed. It's so frustrating. Okay, I'll stop complaining about the format. But the format is very, very, very frustrating to me.
Comment saying,
you didn't make
I'm
a racist comment. No, you
saying
didn't.
That, let's say even if I did.
And he's like, he's cutting me off. He's cutting me off even on my first fucking response. Ah!
Right? The way that you would evaluate the truthfulness of that, he's like, well, let's look at his entire body of
Brilliant.
work.
I accept.
Right?
I accept.
We would say what we do.
Exactly.
So if somebody's making comments about Andrew Tate, then we would look at his entire body of work. So if we look at what Andrew Tate's business is,
I don't know
or
how
at
I'm
least
not,
what he's claimed it is he's working
I
with,
don't know how I'm not screaming at this dude.
with over 70 women, and he claims most of them are his girlfriends, are loyal to him. A lot of them are Eastern European. He has talked about defrauding them on their taxes. He's talked about using a bottom bitch to rope some of them into his business. He's talked about how his brother has talked about how he doesn't let any of them read any of their Instagram messages. He's talked about how he doesn't let any of them leave. There's been statements leaked by some of the victims saying that they weren't allowed to leave the premises without a bodyguard or without one of
those victims that he's quoting for that 50-50 rule. I think I could have known that.
2 women going along with them. That when we look at all of this, I don't think it's fair to say that we're just taking a single clip or we're just taking one comment and we're trying to make the claim like, oh, Andrew Tate is this horrible person. His entire model of camming, from his brother talking about how they would just scam men. Here you go.
I gave you 2.
Oh, that's kind of.
I gave you 2.
Yeah,
There's a pen
I
right
stole
next
all
to
the stuff.
Dustin.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Much
All of
appreciated.
it, yep.
Yeah, we're accommodating here.
Yeah, accommodating. Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate's entire lives have been them openly talking about how they are scammers and about how they basically acquire women to use for their businesses in ways that to any sane person is going to sound like sex trafficking, where you're getting women that are loyal and faithful to you, that you're going to get to do camming, and in multiple statements they've said like, oh, and you know what, they're my property and I get all of the money, and then in other statements, Andrew has detailed how he defrauds them on their taxes.
So like we've run around these points so many times. It's such a waste of time.
I don't see how any insane person does look at this guy like, oh, you know, this kind of looks like sex trafficking. It really does fit the bill completely.
So, okay, so basically 2 points. The fallacy of your position is this, and I'll get to the fallacy in a second. First things first, I agree with you. You should take a person's full body of information, and when you take Andrew Tate's full body, you've seen it online. There's so many of his fans have produced videos demonstrating the complete opposite. No, you shouldn't fraud the women. No, you should look after them. You should take care of them. You should respect them, so on and so forth. So you do have content that is equally on the same level as the content that you
equally
to attack.
Did I even respond to everything on this, or did I only hit the first point there? I don't know why he started talking again. Or I feel like I'm only responding to the very first point he made here about the taking a racist joke from me.
And that's my point. When you use the whole body, there is a huge level of body of information out there that shows both the positivity of what he's doing and the negativity of these statements. That's the first point. In terms of the second point, again, this is the problem.
Dustin's actually willing to watch one of his debates. He usually hates watching himself. This is something I should have been doing in the past. I cringe listen to myself, but I should do this. It's a good thing to do. Reviewing your own stuff is probably one of the most important things you can do ever. Literally ever. It is actually probably the most important thing you can ever do. For music, recording yourself playing and then listening back to you playing at a later date is really important. It's probably true for painting and photography and every other art form. It's probably true for sports, I imagine. Maybe. I'm sure that do people like record themselves and watch like games and shit of them like, you know, going up and down the court or how you handle yourself on a football field. I'm sure that like people watch film of this type of stuff all the time because it's important to see it from a third party perspective, especially when you're removed from the event. I should be watching my stuff, but I wanted to. Oh yeah, reading and writing again at a later date is all probably important stuff. Yeah. So I should be doing this. I just cringe, but I'm doing it now. Or I'll try to this year for most of my important debates.
You're doing, because I know you have to do it because you know the case doesn't line up with your point. what you're basically doing is separating online content of what he's saying and saying, I don't care about what's happening in the case, that he should be convicted based on that. But guess what? I'm saying what he's saying online has no correlation with what he's done. So therefore, you can't use that as evidence to then say he should be convicted. What you should be doing, or what you can do, and I would find that acceptable, is if he's actually got a specific statement. So let's say the US woman says, look, he did X to me, specifically X, not the whole.
Des, are you still coming on our panel tonight? Wait, who? On Point Fresh. Wait, I saw you before. Wait, what panel am I coming on tonight?
Thing and trying to make it look like human trafficking, and then you went and found he did X in the video, then you could be like, he did it, but that's not what's happening. You're basically saying, he did this on the video, I do not care what the evidence states, I'm going to just say that he's guilty.
I never said that.
So what you're basically saying is, guess what, I'm going to trial him, or I'm going to convict him based solely on social media content, irrespective of what the...
And then he gets to go on and make this really great point. It would be really shitty to say somebody's guilty just based on social media. That's true, and that's a powerful point, but he shouldn't be allowed to make that point because I've never stated that. I've never said that Andrew Tate should be guilty based on shit he said on YouTube or TikTok. Why the f I ever think that? This is just a stupid point. But then he gets to go on and like grandstand on this, and it's like, yeah, that's true. Why the f you try to say? And it's like, well, I haven't fucking said that. Yeah, I don't know. Damn.
Real life content is, and that's a problematic because, like I said, you're not.
Hold on. Even retards in YouTube shadow sense. Destiny, that's exactly what you've been saying. You've been saying Andrew Tate is guilty based on what he's been saying. That's no. I said at the very beginning of this debate, the only way you should get convicted in a court of law is if somebody brings evidence in front of a judge or jury, and then you have whatever day in court the legal process there affords you, and then there's a statement or judgment made by either judges or a jury, right? You should follow the legal process. I said that at the beginning of the debate. I've reiterated that several times. Like, yes, but you assume guilt? Sure, yeah, I do personally. Yeah, of course, based on whatever. But why the you care what I personally assume, as long as I'm affording you your rights. I also think OJ probably killed that girl. Like, problem? I mean, yeah, like, we're allowed to have our own personal opinions about things, but I've said a million times that I don't think there should be a conviction or anything like that unless it actually comes out of court. Like,
understanding the point of, and I tried to explain to you from a thinking point of view, and you thought it was a race issue, but you're not understanding the issue of this. People talk in humor. People don't always talk in literalism. People exaggerate. People try and make their business look a lot better than they did. There's a number of reasons for that, but that's basically what happens. So in reality, when you're saying this, we need to look at it from a contextual point of view. So that's the first point. So now what you need to do is give me, if you want something as evidence, give me something in the documents, something that they've done that you say, yeah, they should be convicted. Because guess what? Right now, the judge doesn't agree with you because the judge said there's reasonable suspicion, but there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. So that's why the prosecutor, for the last 9 months as well,
you didn't really make your stance clear. I believe your stance is that the detention was legal at this point. Of course that's my stance, but I've said that. I think I'm about to say it again. The judge obviously does agree with me because they've denied their appeal like 3 times.
these 2 months is looking for the evidence, because if he had the evidence to convict them or prosecute them even before that, he would have used it. But he knows that this.
Okay, understandable, but I think the issue is him being remanded without actual evidence. Till now, no one has even said who's pressing charges. Maybe what do you mean there has been evidence? You might not like it. It might not be enough for you, but there has been evidence that was presented to the court, enough to detain them while they finish their investigation. Like,
this social media content that you're talking about, that doesn't match up with what the real life evidence and claims of the women are. So what you are saying is, guess what? I don't care what the judge says. It doesn't matter that the judge says that there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. That's not good enough for me. I'm going to look at social media content, and he's guilty.
Okay, so I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning of the show. Only one of us here seems interested in having the process.
Now by the time I reiterate, it looks weak to even do it because he got to grandstand so hard, or like, oh, don't try a court of public opinion and convict people based on blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no fucking shit. It's so frustrating.
Follow itself completely, and that's me. I said that whatever they find, I think that if they find enough to bring charges, then they should have a trial, and if they do well in their trial, the prosecution, then he should get convicted. That's how it should work. It might be the case that after the prosecution digs further, that they don't find enough, and Andrew Tate and Tristan and the other 2 women end up walking. That could be the case, and if that is the case, then that's fine. I'm not here saying that he should be convicted. You keep saying that he should be convicted. I don't believe that he should be convicted based on what he said in his social media post. post.
Thanks, we
I think
agree.
that okay, cool. But
Yeah.
I think that it's.
So we
But I
agree.
think that it's.
Why is he
I think
cutting
that
me
it's
off so
okay
much?
to-
So
what do we
Look,
disagree on?
Hold on.
What is
what
he
do we
coming?
disagree
I
on?
do.
Hold on. Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
The
that's
first thing you said is look at his full body of work. Okay.
Yeah.
His full body of work is that he treats women like property. When he has some TikTok videos that say things like you should look after women and respect them and take care of them, he's taking care of them as a pimp takes care of his prostitutes. And he's reiterated that multiple times, that the women belong to him, that they're not allowed to go out without him, they can't go to the club without him, they can't do these things without him, that they stay home all the time and they cook and they clean and they hold on, let me respond to his things, please.
And then Pearl wants to cut me off.
Okay, yeah. That he's multiple times stated this, and his brother Tristan has stated the same thing as well, that they're not allowed to look at their Instagram DMs, that he controls all of their social media accounts. They probably control their income as well, I would imagine that would extend to that. So when you say that there's a counterbalance, well, on one end, he's treating women like property, but on the other end, he's saying that respect them because you need to own them as sex workers, essentially, or own them as house slaves. I don't think that that's a good counterbalance. You bring up this point again and again that he should be convicted based on social media things. I have not said that he should be convicted. What I'm saying is that, and what you agreed to, is that the prosecution hasn't given us every single piece of evidence. If Andrew Tate has said, I defraud people on their tax...
Don't let chat gaslight you. You literally said in your opening statement that he would only be guilty unless he's lying about everything he said online.
I personally think there's enough out there that Andrew Tate himself has said that unless he's lying about what he's done, he's obviously guilty of at least a few things.
Okay, cool.
I don't think that he should be convicted for it. I think that would be a good point for the prosecution to say, okay, well, let's start subpoenaing records and let's see what have these girls actually been paid. They should have bank accounts. There should be income statements from his camming websites, and then the prosecution can look and they could go, this woman earned, 50,000 Romanian dollars, and she was paid, 25,000 Romanian dollars. Well, everything here is probably good, and they move on. But maybe she earned $50,000, and for some reason she's only getting paid 500 Romanian dollars. Then that would be probably something you would bring in court and say, hey, look, this is part of the charges we're bringing against you. You are clearly defrauding these women. I don't know what the extent of that investigation is going to be because right now I don't have any insight into what the prosecution has besides what they've leaked to the public or presented to the judge to maintain that the Tates remain in prison until they finish their investigation. The people talking humor and all of this, again, I'm going by full-length videos that I've watched of Andrew and Tristan Tate explaining how they work with women and explaining their business. I'm not going by little quips. I'm not going by small clips. I'm not going by jokes. I'm just listening to how they describe the process of what they do. And if you listen to it, it sounds indistinguishable from pimping.
Would you agree that the CCTV footage should be included in the case?
I don't know what the particular. I don't think
I
that
just think
every.
it's weird. Like, why wouldn't they have that in there?
Why, I don't know what evidence they need to have on both sides because they don't need every single piece of evidence.
Well,
right?
I'm just thinking, like, if you're gonna go off of, because you guys know a lot more about this than I do, but basically, like, that Andrew and Tristan were like running this operation. Wouldn't CCTV footage be the perfect thing to see? Like
the problem is I don't know if the CCTV footage.
You argued points that you should have conceded to. That last statement was an actual contradiction to say you're not going based on social media, but then said based off what he said he should be. No. Okay. How would I explain this to Nathan, an 11-year-old child? If somebody comes out and says, I killed my mother in cold blood, I murdered her, and I say, wow, that person is a murderer. He killed his mom. Not cool. But, I mean, obviously, police should do an investigation and they should, figure out if he actually did it. Like, I think that would be important before charging him and convicting him of an actual crime. And then you come to me and go, Destiny, how can you in one breath say you trust the legal system, but then also say that based on his social media statements, he's guilty? Like, I don't know how to respond to your point. I don't even know what the fuck I'm supposed to say to you. I feel like what I'm saying is so self-evident. It's like it's literally granted to you by the grammar of the statement. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I don't know how to dumb that down for you anymore. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
Is dispositive, right? It might be the case that there are videos of them partying inside, but it might be the case that leaving the compound is actually incredibly difficult. That you're not that once you step outside, you get in trouble. Also, according to Romanian criminal law, statements from victims can't get rid of sex trafficking. Like a victim can't consent to that. So even if a victim says, "Oh, well, this was all fine and it was okay," if text message logs are leaked where he's saying like, "Oh, I want to marry you," blah blah blah, and then she comes down and she starts working for him and she's not even getting paid her fair cut. It doesn't matter if she comes out on social media and says, "Oh no, like we're cool. Everything's fine," especially if they're still working in the industry. Those statements explicitly called out in Romanian law are not used to clear the charges of sex trafficking. They're irrelevant.
Okay, so let me go through your points. Might be a while. Right. So first things first, in terms of the property point, right? So again, this is the issue where what happened was Andrew Tate has explained this in long form, and he did explain that, look, the way I see it is in a traditional religious view. So what happens is in the Abrahamic religions, you have a scenario where the man gives the father gives the woman away. There is a dowry where you give a payment to the father and then it passes over. Now you may...
I should have just interrupted here and said, which traditional religious values allow you to do webcamming? I should have interrupted him here. I make a huge mistake because I ask him that question, expecting to give me a quick answer and then to continue on, and he ends up getting a whole other like 5 minutes of fucking talking time.
Agree or disagree with that, but that's the perspective. Now I understand in this liberal Western world why that would be a problem, and because in liberal Western ideology, in reality, it's the man who's the property of the woman.
I like how he throws in all of this shit to make you know that he's like fucking so unbelievably stupidly bad faith. Like he's very ideologically driven for a lot of this, like, oh, gynocentric universe where the woman actually controls the man. It's like, what are we talking about right now?
Because what happens is in this... Yeah, I'm about to explain to you, Destiny. So because in this world, in this Western liberal ideology, you have a scenario where basically the man, when he marries the woman, he makes a contract. And the contract is this, that he promised to be monogamous. But the woman doesn't make the same agreement. Because what happens is if the man cheats on the woman, he loses 50% of everything. If she leaves him. If the woman cheats on the man, he has to either accept it or he has to basically divorce it, and then he loses 50% of everything. So so I understand why that would be a problem, because in Western liberalism, the man is the property of the woman. In terms of Did
you ride the Elizabeth Crossrail line? Cool trains? Yeah, I think I took the Elizabeth line back and forth every time. They must be new in London because they seem brand new. Yeah, they're really cool. They were way better than the other lines I've ridden on before. No offense.
You said I don't think, but it doesn't matter what you think about this issue. It's about what's actually happened. And in terms of the issue, you've got a scenario where there's not enough evidence to prosecute or convict. That's what the judge said. Because what you're trying to say is, guess what? There may be a plethora of evidence, but they've not given it to us. So, guys, there is enough of evidence to prosecute, but it's just hidden away. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is they're looking for the evidence to take the bar from reasonable suspicion to the fact that they know that they'll be able to convict beyond reasonable doubt. That's why they're looking. That's why the boys and the two girls are in prison, because they're looking for this evidence. Now, that's the other point. Now, you said what should be happening is, and I think you...
Do you have to give up half your income if you petition for a divorce on one of the grounds they offer, like infidelity and domestic abuse? No, I'm pretty sure, somebody can Google this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in an at-fault divorce, you wouldn't be liable to owe shit like this guy's saying. Like, if your wife is cheating on you and you go to court for filed divorce, you can prove that, then I don't think you owe, anything on that. Like, that's one of the ways to escape a relationship without owing a bunch of money.
You made a fair point. You said, guess what? What should be happening is the prosecutor should be looking at the accounts of the girls, looking at the data information, looking at how much money's got in the account, and then they'll find out. I agree with that. And if they do that, then we'll have a better idea of what's happened. But up to now, it's either they've done it and that doesn't give us the information that they want, right? And hence why they're still looking for more evidence. That's the first possibility. Or the second possibility is they've not even realized about doing it and they probably should have consulted with you. And they need to do it for over the next 4 months. That's the other point. In terms of the CCTV, the problem is, because and I explained to you, this is contravention of international law and Romanian law. I have to explain to you, is Article 5.1, Article 99.
What he just said now is what my brain is having trouble with. Putting someone in the cage while looking for evidence to further justify caging them. No. In order to even put them in the cage, the prosecution has to show compelling evidence to the judge that the direction the investigation is moving in seems promising. That there's there's a good amount of evidence to say, like, okay, this is probably moving to a stage where you can bring charge against somebody. The prosecution has to make the argument to the judge in order to do that. This is why they were arrested in Romania before, and they didn't have that enough to actually keep them in jail for it, because they didn't have that evidence before.
And Article 99 and Article 100 say, so Article 99 says this: the victim and the suspect should be able to present evidence to fight,
You don't even know that? What do you mean I don't even know? That's literally what the statement from the fucking judge said. Unless you think he's lying.
to the prosecutor in terms of positive evidence in their case, so they've contravened that. Article 100, that the defendant should be able to provide evidence that basically strengthens his case so that the prosecutor can think twice whether to prosecute or not. So these have been contravened, and this was my example because I know you wanted examples of international law being contravened. But it's not just international law, it's not European law just, because remember, European law is incorporated into Romanian law, so it's both. In terms of the WhatsApp, so again, you got a scenario where, like I said to you, you have a scenario where
the prosecutor hasn't turned over copies to the defense. Wait, the prosecution doesn't have to turn over everything to defense until it gets to trial. What you're talking about is like the discovery process. An investigation doesn't have to turn over every single thing to the defense. That's like what has to get turned over is what comes out in discovery.
WhatsApp messages have only been given in snippets and the whole entirety hasn't been given. So again, those should be given in the snippets. Again, contravening those articles that I mentioned, they should all be given so that a person can have a full basis of understanding of what exactly is going on. And the last point, you mentioned that according to Romanian law, a victim we can have a scenario where the victim consents and is still trafficking. How do you know that? The reason you know that is because you have a psych evaluation to be able to determine if that person has been brainwashed or the Stockholm syndrome for that person. I've explained to you already, the women who they're claiming are brainwashed haven't had a psych report. How can you make it? How can I speak to you and then I say your wife's brainwashed? That's illogical. I need to speak to your wife and then make a psychological deduction and say that is she brainwashed or not. And finally,
do you really not know this? Not know what? What are you talking about? Wait, what do you think I've said that's incorrect? An investigation is when the police... Then how can they be used for exculpatory evidence at this point? Okay. An investigation is when police officers are trying to gather enough evidence to see if they can build a case against you to bring charges against you in a court of law, okay? If they feel sufficient evidence has been gathered, and if the state wants to bring criminal charges against you, and they do that, then we move to pretrial, right? Now, in pretrial, there's a process called discovery. Now, discovery is where both of you go back into the closet and you say, I'll show you mine if you show me yours, okay? That's where both sides say, listen, we're gonna debate in court. We're gonna have an epic debate in front of 12 people or however many jury, whatever. And I want you to show me everything you're gonna debate about. And I'll show you everything I'm gonna debate about. I don't have to see every single fucking thing they've ever come across or every single conversation they've had or every single part of the investigation. I just need to see what you're gonna show the jury in court. That's what discovery is. But that's a pretrial, that's part of like the trial process, right? Discovery is not the same as an investigation, right? These are two totally separate things. And even, we can even, believe it or not, I don't know if any lawyer people disagree, believe it or not, most legal shit exists because it kind of makes sense. It has to be that way. Like if it was other ways, it would be really fucked. What you guys are saying is like the prosecution should have to turn over everything before charges even brought. Think about what that would even look like. Let's say somebody says like, okay, well, I'm going to bring charges, or we think we arrested him. We're gonna go and investigate. We're gonna ask questions to like these 2 or 3 or 4 people. Imagine you tell the defense that before they've even like gotten charges. Like the liability and the potential for obstruction and everything there is massive. Why would you even do that? That doesn't make sense. If the police are doing an investigation, police aren't obligated to let you get steps ahead of the investigation. The investigatory process is separate from the actual process of these are the things I'm taking to court, right? That it's a different thing. Oh, okay.
You haven't answered this question. I've explained it. That when it comes to the rape allegations, when it comes to the human trafficking allegations, the judge has said that the evidence you've provided me is...
Why does Destiny keep saying everything? We're talking about turning over literal footage of the alleged crime. CCTV footage is not footage of the alleged crime, though, or exonerate, or I don't think it's exculpatory evidence either, is it? I'll try to find it after this. We'll try to like watch the actual fucking CCTV footage. I don't know why you guys think, and this is like one of the weirdest talking points. It's like footage of a woman dancing in a house proves that she wasn't raped earlier. Like what? That doesn't even make sense. I don't know why people think the CCTV footage is exculpatory. I've never heard a compelling argument of that. But we'll go and look it up and we'll watch it. I guess in an hour once we finish this. I don't know. Like it's like a dumb red pill talking about. It's like, oh, like how did this dumb hoe get fucking raped if she was like partying, later the next day? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like what do you mean? Of course it does. What are you talking about? Like bro, women will get raped and like go hang out with a guy like that night because they're so fucking mind fucked. Like the fact that you think that's exculpatory says so much about your view of the world.
Reasonable suspicion, but you need to go back and find enough evidence so we can prosecute and convict. They're looking for that evidence and they've not found it. Your argument that guess what, they might have it hidden somewhere and they might use it later, that's illogical, because the whole point is they're looking for it to be able to now prosecute, convict. That's why they've got the guys in there. Unless you're saying they're basically again trying to torture the guy.
We've gone back on this point. How much longer is this debate? I hate this format. Never again, never again, never again. Dude, there's literally a video of you saying you hid your wife's passport. Should we lock you up? Andrew Tate is not being held in detention just because of a YouTube video. He's being held. If Melina went to the cops and made statements to them, then maybe you could lock me up. If Melina went to the police or the embassy and she was like, hey, my husband stole my passport, maybe that might be enough to at least detain me for an investigation. But we're not just going by, they didn't say to the judge, look at these YouTube videos.
Guys, keep them in there, even though they have the evidence, keep them in there for the full 180 days, and the girls to break them and then use that later.
Okay, so the first thing, I just have a simple question. So I'm not a big religious guy, okay? I grew up Catholic, but what do I know, okay? Which of the traditional Abrahamic religious practices allow you to have your wives webcamming?
I shouldn't have asked this question because I expected a quick answer, but then he goes off into a whole other thing. I didn't even get to respond to the rest of the fucking points.
Sorry?
I should never give him a chance to talk.
Abrahamic religions allow you to have your girlfriend webcamming? I'm just curious.
Yeah, of course, that's a very good question. So, in terms of which Abrahamic religion, it is wrong according to all of the ethical paradigms. I think it's wrong. So, I think the entire industry. Okay. Let me finish now because you asked me a question. I can't give a half answer.
I shouldn't even ask. He's like, it's like this is like every fucking dog shit debate tactic, like all rolled into one. Like he does all of them. He does every single one. It's so shitty.
Entire industry, which is the webcam industry, whether it's the OnlyFans industry, whether it's the TikTok industry, whether it's Instagram, just any like kind of sexual exploitation of men, and some of it is exploitation of women as well, is not allowed at all. But in terms of what you're trying to make it look like is, guess what?
And then he's extrapolating based on bro, it was a simple question before oh my god. I should have just said none of them allow you to do this, and I should have just answered it myself. And then
following religion in this, and he's not following in this.
The fault lies with you. I tried to stop it, but then he kept going. I don't know.
But my point is this. We don't know, because when you look at his views, even in 2020, when it came to some of his views about Islam, they were horrendous. And he then apologized and said, look, I had these views and I no longer have these views. So we can only make someone's a determination on somebody's ethical framework on that given point, because people's ethics change. My ethics have changed. You change in terms of...
So I don't know why we would ever appeal to any traditional statement then that Andrew Tate has made, because you just admitted that he made horrible statements on Islam in 2020, maybe 2021. I don't know when he converted, but I'm not going to then fall back on his traditional religious statements to defend earlier points in time when you yourself said he'd made horrible statements on Islam.
He explained in the Piers Morgan interview.
Let me fucking talk!
Sure, and I've seen the Piers Morgan interview, and I don't think that there was any redemption to be found for Andrew Tate in that interview. I don't think that you can say he was being traditional when he talks about owning women and then using them to webcam. I don't think there's anything traditional about that. There is certainly nothing in Christianity about that. I seriously doubt that anybody in Islam would be protecting that.
I wasn't.
Let me finish. Okay, yeah. There's nothing traditional about that. So I'm not going to evaluate any of his statements as a traditionally religious statement. I'm going to evaluate them for what they are. I don't know this side tangent about how, like, if a woman owns a man because if a man cheats on her, she gets half or whatever. First of all, like, even alimony is awarded in very rare cases. You're talking about, like, exceptional circumstances where big estates are being separated. And when they are being separated, it's based on the accumulation of wealth within that marriage. Now, if the man is accumulating most of the wealth, then yeah, he might be subject to lose it based on the agreement of the marriage. But if a woman is accumulating most of the wealth, then she's subject to lose it.
Who's accumulating most of the wealth in marriages?
Right now, it's men.
Thank you.
But the law doesn't say a man loses half and a woman owns the man.
No, I'm
the
talking
law
about the
just says-
implications.
I don't care about the implication. I'm talking about the law,
that
right?
matters.
That's great. But
Oh
I'm just talking
my
about the law.
God.
So the law says that once you are married as a couple, you begin to accumulate and accrue things as a couple, and then when you split, depending on the agreements you have in place, depending on what the arrangement of the marriage was, you are generally entitled to split those things 50-50 between both parties. Now, if one side has earned more than the other, of course, it's going to feel like they're losing more. But that is the legal arrangement of marriages as they exist in the West. If you don't like it, that's fine. Get a prenup. When we talk about how like there's not enough evidence to convict, and you're saying that's not how you keep saying that they don't have evidence to do the charges right now. It might be the case.
I feel like we go back and forth on these same points then for the next like 45 minutes. I don't know if anything new gets said here.
That they feel like they have a strong case. They feel like they have enough to do some kind of charge now, but they want to dig farther and see how much they can find before they actually go to court. If they were to try to charge them right now on just sex trafficking, maybe it's the case that in 1 or 2 months they could have dug up more evidence, and maybe they could have had something related to tax fraud as well. But they need time to find that information. Now, in Romanian criminal courts, you can detain somebody for up to 180 days, depending on the type of criminal conviction or charge they might be facing. And in these cases, the charges are exceptional. It's sex trafficking, it's rape. I think that criminal organization or arrangement of criminal organization is one of the charges as well. In these cases, when these are the charges facing them, they have the right to detain these people and to search more to finish what they want to accumulate for, or what they want to accrue before they start to bring these charges to the people. They don't have to charge them immediately right when they have something. That's just not the case. So you keep saying this line that, well, the judges said they don't have enough to convict, they don't have enough to charge. Why would the prosecution hide something?
Yep.
It might be the case that the prosecution is just doing more research to see what they actually want to bring when they've done all the research, rather than
Does hyper-focusing on one point at a time instead of running down a list work better to combat the gish galloping? I don't think so, because I think that some parts of debates is a little bit like DBZ. Like, imagine two people are fighting and one guy gets to like power up for 10 minutes and the other guy only powers up for 1 minute. The guy powering up for 1 minute is going to lose every time. And when you get to talk and ramble and make bad point after bad point, and then while you're doing that, you're also like attacking the opponent at the same time. He's white, he's Western, he's gynocentric, and you're building all of this bullshit. Like, I don't think it looks good to just go after one point. I don't think you can. I think you have to you have to find a way to not let that happen. I think it just undermines your whole position too much. They just end up looking stronger and stronger and stronger while they're just rambling on some like wild shit.
and charging the first thing they have that they think will stick. And the judge himself has said, while you are correctly saying that he's saying they're not looking for enough evidence to bring a conviction or a charge yet, he's saying that there is a lot of evidence that points in that direction, and that's why he has denied repeatedly the appeals of the Tates to be released from prison. When you talk about statements from like suspects or whatever, the reason why the suspect statements don't matter is because sex trafficking can never be done with the consent of a
I should have said don't matter. I should have said aren't exculpatory.
victim. It might be the case that a victim says, oh no, I consent, oh no, it's okay. But if you dig up the evidence that they were initially misled or that they were coerced in some manner and they continue to work for the person, it doesn't matter if they're going to say, oh no, it's okay. It's just like in the West, you can't sell yourself into slavery. Much the same, you can't consent to being sex trafficked. It doesn't matter what the victim says at that point. Yeah, that's all I got for that.
Okay, so I've got my list.
Okay.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right, so in terms of what you said about about the traditional values, because what you did was you said, guess what? I explained traditional values in terms of the
I feel like he didn't watch the Piers Morgan debate. We watched that. That was a pretty rough debate for Tate. I think Piers Morgan like fucking rode that dude around the fucking around the studio. That was rough. I can't believe that he came away from that debate thinking that Andrew Tate did well, unless he's only seen clips or something. I have no idea.
the property argument. And then you said, guess what? Overarching, it needs to apply to everything. No, I just in the Piers Morgan interview, he'd already converted to Islam, so you saw that direction where he was basically.
There was a second one. Which one did we watch? Wait, were there multiple ones? Did we miss one? It was the one we watched where Piers Morgan was very good at like recentering on the same question over and over and over and over and over again. He absolutely roasted the fuck out of Tate in that. Unless there's another one that he did. There were two. Oh, maybe there's a second one.
Basically changing his ethical framework. And so that covers that issue. In terms of accruing money, what you said where men can earn more, what you're saying is it's all about the law. But the thing is that what the law does is right now it has a scenario where it severely impacts men, hence why I said men are property. And in terms of talking about marriage, because I did see a podcast from yesterday where you claimed that 60% of men.
It's so weird how he just decides to jump into these like random red pill talking points. It's so random.
Receive custody. That's inaccurate. I did look into it because when I heard it, I was shocked. It's actually 80% of women receive custody, so that was inaccurate.
I think it's like 90% of women, but
and there's some data saying 65%, but it's actually
versus
80% of women. So 20% of men only receive custody. So if you can provide us with your data, because I've looked into this significant amount of research in terms of what I said. Which
sure.
Let me finish.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry. Now you said, guess what? My argument was this. They've not got enough evidence to prosecute and convict. The judges told them, go back and look for more evidence. Your argument is, maybe they're looking for other things. Maybe they might find other things. Maybe they're looking for tax. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what maybe is. It matters what it is right now. Right now, the judge has said, there's not enough evidence.
We seriously go back on this point like 50 times. It's such a cluster.
Find the evidence. So all the evidence that they presented, and they presented the WhatsApps, they presented the psych reports, and they presented the witness statements, that isn't enough. So your argument about maybe, could be, possibly, irrelevant. Can't even read my own writing. But anyway, another point is, again, you said about 180 days, the same thing. You said it might be the case. So again, irrelevant. Now, what you said is, another point, you said there's a lot of evidence. Look, that is inaccurate. What the judge said is, and it's very important that viewers understand the thresholds. Right now, there's not a lot of evidence. What has been presented to the judge only meets reasonable suspicion. So you've got reasonable suspicion here. I don't want to give a percentage because then it'll get into a debate about percentages. But as a viewer, you can understand maybe it's like 20, 30%, whatever it may be. That's just a percentage I made up, a reasonable suspicion. Then in a civil court, you have something called balance of probability. So you need to prove something by 51%, right? And then you got something which is beyond.
This guy did a 2.5 hour. Oh my God. Did Myron say if I'm still debating this guy? Hold on. I asked him yesterday. He said, let me double check.
Are good, wholesome women, only to find out later on that she's anything but, you're exploited financially, etc., etc. Okay, nobody has a problem with that. You should have known, picking the wrong kind of woman.
Oh my God.
Reasonable doubt. What is that percentage? Maybe 70, 80, 90, but it needs to be beyond reasonable doubt. Like, if a reasonable person won't be able to doubt it. So that's the level it needs to get to in terms of evidence. So when you say there's a lot of evidence, no, there's some evidence, which is reasonable. And the last point.
You're saying it has to be to that level in order for them to detain him for this long?
No, I'm saying in order to prosecute and convict, it has to be at that level, because you have to convict based on that. And they know they haven't got that. So they need to take the evidence from here and take it all the way up to here before they can actually convict or prosecute.
So do you know what level roughly they have to be at in order to detain someone for that long?
Reasonable suspicion, which is very low.
Like 20 to 30%?
Which is Romanian, which is what I said, which I had a problem with the Romanian law, but it is Romanian law.
It's U.S. law too. I should have known that. It's U.S. law as well.
You keep mentioning consent. And the problem is this: with what you're arguing, I can say you've been human trafficked, and you'll be like, no, I haven't been human trafficked. Yeah, but look, you got transported here, you're brainwashed. Pearl brainwashed you, and you're like, no, I never brainwashed her. She never brainwashed me. Pearl will be like, no, I never brainwashed her. And then I'll just speak to the producer, and he'll be like, yeah, he was brainwashed, and then that's it, you're brainwashed. No, the way I find out if someone's brainwashed is I will speak to you. And you've not answered this point. And I will make a psych evaluation on you. And I will say, based on this evaluation, this person does look like they're being brainwashed. This person does look like they got Stockholm syndrome. And then we can do it. Because if you're going to live in a society where I can randomly just say, this person's brainwashed, that person's brainwashed, just based on a random person saying it, or someone who knows you saying it, that is a scary society to live in. That's a totalitarian society. And that's why I always say, as much as if you don't like Andrew Tate or you love Andrew Tate or whatever it may be, always remember, whenever you're making an argument, them arguments can be used against you, because whenever they used draconian measures against someone, they always use it against someone you don't like, and then they apply it to everybody else. That's very important to realize.
Wow.
And so that's the whole basis that you can claim that anyone's brainwashed. You've still not answered my question about the contravention of the international laws and EU laws, which I cited.
Well, nobody has claimed that there have been, besides their lawyers, nobody is challenging any of the Romanian laws in European courts, because I don't think that there has been a problem with how Romania conducts its legal system in the European courts. When you try to say that you could just say that I'm brainwashed and Pearl trafficked me, you could say that. If you went through and you dug through our text messages and Pearl is saying, Stephen, come to London, I want to marry you, please. And then I show up and she's like, you're going to suffer through 6 of my shows now, and maybe we'll get married by the end. And also I'm going to, then you would have a case. You would have a foundation for it. But it's not just a matter of I'm saying you're brainwashed, therefore you are, therefore you were trafficked. That's not equivalent at all here, right? What we're looking at is a pattern of Tate communicating with girls, promising to marry them, getting into relationships with them, and then bringing them over, and then having them do sex work. That's what's being alleged here. And a victim's statement saying like, oh no, he really did love me, and that's not what's happening, that's not enough to overturn it. So if you wanted to make the comparison to me and Pearl, you would have to find some crazy messages from her to me that I don't believe exist, that show that she's promising me some kind of relationship or something that's getting me to fly out here and do content. That's what would make it equivalent. The actual evidence, the actual messages afterwards. When you keep saying here that the judge has said that there's not enough evidence to convict, I don't believe the judge has made that statement. What the judge has said is you do not require enough evidence for a conviction. You only need enough to bring a charge forward. And the prosecution right now is in the final stages of their investigation of doing that. Now, you can say that they're holding him for whatever reason they want, or they, maybe they don't have the evidence and they're just bullshitting their way through it. But if that's the case, they were already arrested in Romania before and they weren't held for that long, right? Where they were already released. So it seems like they do have some internal standard they're trying to meet to have a compelling amount of evidence to lock them up and finish an investigation. And like I said, all we can do is wait and see what the final results of that turn out to be. If it turns out to be that they didn't collect anything compelling, then I imagine hopefully they release what they have or whatever. We say that was enough, and then they walk, and then that's it. But if they do have enough, then it moves forward to the trial stage. And I just don't know why you would ever feel confident enough to say that evidence doesn't exist. They're not going to have it. There's no way. When things are being leaked by the prosecution, every 2 days, every new day, we get something else. I think, geez, shoot, I should have read this, but I'm pretty sure 2 days ago there was literally just something new.
I remember it later in the debate, but it was 2 days prior to this. Investigators had found that there were, I believe, 3 different women that tried to report either assault or rape or both to local Romanian authorities, and those reports ended up getting disappeared. And I think the theory is that the Romanian police officer that was working with the Tates was the reason why that happened. That had just come out 2 days prior, but I think I bring this up later.
That was released about a couple of the new victims, or one of the new victims that came forward. But I mean, new stuff is coming forward all the time. When you... Can I finish my 4
Yeah,
minutes?
go
Okay,
ahead,
sorry.
go ahead.
You mentioned that 60. I do think it's telling that there's a weird. When I try to evaluate the Andrew Tate stuff, I'm not trying to do this weird East versus West, Islam, whatever. I'm just looking at the facts of the case. That's all I generally care about. I think it's interesting that there are so many of these points you're bringing up relating to Western, Eastern, gynocentric, females owning men. You brought up that 60% versus 80% of who's winning custody cases. The claim that I made was that when men fight for custody, they win 60% of the time. I believe that women win 80 to 90% of the time, but that's because men usually don't fight for custody. But when they do fight for custody, they tend to win 60% of the time. Those are the numbers that I'm familiar with. When you say that laws favor men versus women when it comes to divorcing, it just favors whoever's made most of the money. And in this female-dominated world, as women are earning more and more money, maybe when men will rise up, and when we divorce women, maybe we'll start taking more from them than they take from us. But it just matters. The only thing that matters is who's earned more money, not whether you're a man or woman. And then for the final thing, the first thing you brought up was he was changing his framework on Piers Morgan. Why would I care about him changing his framework on Piers Morgan when the statements that he's made about owning women were done in the past when he owned his sex trafficking business? It might be the case that as of the past year, he's become a good, devout Muslim. He follows the teaching of Islam and all of that, and he's doing that great. That's fine. I don't care. That's not when he ran his business. He ran his business 5 years ago.
Would you agree with what he said on the psych evaluation, that those girls should have had a psych evaluation themselves?
I don't know specifically how the psychologist is extrapolating to the other.
The correct answer here is it's an expert witness. Expert witnesses are literally brought in to extrapolate. It's their job. An expert witness doesn't need to analyze every single individual piece of evidence. The whole point of them being an expert witness is that they can make extrapolations and opine on things that they haven't directly observed or witnessed.
The women, I do know that the 2 that go on to defend Tate literally have tattoos of him on their body, so I don't know if they would be, and I'm pretty sure they still work in the industry, so I don't know if those are going to be the most exonerating types of evidence. But I mean, if the psych evals were the only thing that was keeping them in the Romanian courts, I think I would probably disagree with the judge's evaluation there. But those aren't the only things holding them in the court. The prosecution has leaked a ton of different types of text messages showing criminal intent, showing organization of the criminal organization, showing threats made to some of the talent, showing different messages where Andrew Tate is promising marriage if a woman moves to Romania. To say that the prosecution rests solely on that psych eval, I don't believe that's fair.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so first thing is, in terms of the contravention of the international law, you didn't give no answer. All you said is, I don't think it's a problem. It doesn't matter what you think. It's about whether they contravene or not. The second thing
But
is,
it's about
in
what he
terms
thinks.
of
Sorry, I think I said that
relationship,
next.
again, so what you're doing is you're basically saying, because I give the analogy about Yumpel, so what you're basically saying is, if someone's in a relationship vis-a-vis, that means that they are human trafficked. No, those women, clearly based on the leaked documents that you are referring to, were in love with Tate, went to Romania on their own volition, and then they made the decision based on consent. Even the BBC woman literally said, I made the decision based on my own choice and my own decision. What you're saying is, guess what? They were brainwashed. And I just said to you, but anyway, you've conceded it. You said that the psych report is unacceptable that it happened. And in terms of the...
I didn't even say that. I said if that was the only piece, it might be unacceptable. Oh, this guy is he's like every bad faith debate trope rolled into like one master debater. Jesus Christ.
Psych report, you're saying, again, I don't think. This is the problem. Your whole argument is about what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. What the judges said is there was three important there was three aspects of the evidence that were important in order to make a determination. In terms of the rape allegation, do you know what the two evidences are? It's only the witness statement and the psych report. So it's 50% of the evidence, because the witness statement and the psych report are equally
Rape is only
weighted,
one
and
of
it's
the
statement
charges,
of the woman.
though.
In terms of the other women being brainwashed, it's three. So it's the witness statement, it's the psych report, and finally it's the evidence that's been leaked. And this is the issue. The evidence that's being leaked is weak. Like when you look at the evidence, it does not demonstrate what they're being charged for. It's so weak. It's snippets of information. And that's what my argument is, that based on the evidence that we have right now, and the judge agrees with me, so based on the leaks, that evidence isn't enough to prosecute or convict. So that's the point. So you're right, we're getting leaks all the time, and yet we've not got a damning leak. So this is the problem. We've not got anything damning that says it. The other point you made is, in terms of, we're talking about 5 years ago. Again, that's incorrect. We're not talking about 5 years ago. Maybe we're talking about 5 years ago in terms of the YouTube clips that you're
The leak doesn't have... Oh, and he says YouTube clips again. Fuck, I don't know if I want to watch the last hour of this. That contravention is a big deal if it's true, though. Destiny should have asked for evidence. I've seen some weak evidence. There's no evidence for it, though. That's just his opinion. It's literally just if he's like, oh, I feel like you're violating international law. But there's no international case. There's nobody saying that international... Like, that's just his opinion. It's just what he feels like. He doesn't like it. But, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that in response.
interested in, but I already explained to you that's irrelevant, and I think you admitted that it's irrelevant.
Wait, when was this camming business?
They're not being charged for 5 years ago. They've been charged for the last year and a half.
Yeah, but we were talking about in the context of this camming business. When was this camming business?
So they're not even being charged for the camming business. What they've been charged for is OnlyFans and TikTok.
Yeah, but when did he do his camming business?
When did he start his camming business?
Yeah.
Well, I've not looked into that. That's not relevant, because what's relevant...
Well, because you're making
because what's relevant... No, that's not relevant, because again... What you're looking at is social media. Your whole thing is trial by social media. Everything on social media convicts him. I'm saying it doesn't matter what social media says.
And he brings up the same bullshit points. I don't think anybody should be convicted based on social media shit. How many times have I said this?
Let's look at what's actually happening. What's actually happening is he's being charged for allegations from mid-2021 till mid-2022. It's that year or year and a half. In that year and a half... He did not do the cam business. The court documents say it's TikTok and OnlyFans. And so when you're referring to 5 years ago, that's irrelevant. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if he's a good Muslim or a bad Muslim. That's not relevant to me. I'm trying to explain to you the reason why he used the terminology of property. Now, you're saying he's a contradiction. Why is he using the term property and then he's having a webcam business? So... if he was using the term property a year ago, and he's using let's say a year ago, yeah, and he's doing the web OnlyFans and what's it, TikTok. What all that demonstrates is that he's got a contradiction in his views. And I can tell you now, most people that do have contradiction in their ideas, views, thoughts, ideologies. I accept that's a contradiction. But in terms of that specific point, he is appealing to traditional values, even though I agree webcam business isn't. Again, look, you keep saying, I don't think I don't think it's that. But look, the judge already said the standard meets reasonable suspicion, look for more evidence. That's the reason they've detained him. No one's denying that. So, when you keep saying, I don't think, I know you need to say that because you need this debate to continue going and you need to try and argue your point. But in reality, that's not what it is. You have to look at what the data is and what the information is. And that's literally what we've got. The information, according to the judge, is that it's not enough. You mentioned that... I've answered. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. You keep saying like the judge agrees with me when clearly he doesn't because he has denied their appeals and continued to detain them. So when you say the judge agrees,
why is it denied?
Because he believes that the prosecution has provided sufficient evidence to show that there are...
What level of evidence?
The judge has said... I'm just saying that if you want to disagree with me, say, okay, well, maybe the judge doesn't disagree with me, but it's strange that you would pick and choose the judge...
What level of evidence? Just answer it. What level of evidence has he given?
That there's reasonable suspicion that a serious crime has been...
We agree.
Sure. That's how the Romanian criminal court system works.
No.
That's what Andrew Tate moved specifically to Romania to take advantage of. He said that he liked the way their courts worked, and he moved there, and now he's moving there. Now, if you say no, you can't. You can't after I'm done.
Okay.
So you said very specifically that it's about I feel, I think. That's every statement you've made in regards to them contravening with international law. The international courts aren't saying the Romania system is in violation of international law. No European Commission has said that the Romanian courts are in violation of international law, and the judge himself is referencing international law when he's giving reasons in his own document for why they're remaining locked up. So if you want to say the judge agrees with you, I don't know what you're agreeing with. Maybe you just want to pick and choose things that the judge says that you agree with. I understand we're kind of circling the drain on that argument, going back and forth, but yeah.
No, that does confuse me. So if the judge agrees with you, then why is he locked up still?
Yeah, so basically that's the reason why they've taken on Tina Glandian because so the judge agrees with me.
What is that argument there? That's the reason they've taken on Tina Glandian. Wait, how does that answer her question at all? He's so slippery.
About the level of evidence.
Okay.
So what the level of evidence is that, and Destiny agrees as well because he said.
Also, this point, I tried to do more research efforts because I knew that they brought on the Tina woman, but I didn't look into that much at all because it's their U.S. representative. It's a U.S. lawyer, but like I don't think she's licensed to practice in. I didn't do any research on her at all because she's not relevant to anything. And so I did more reading on her after this, and I was right. She has no relevance to this whatsoever. How would I prepare for this point? I don't know why he brings this up. Like, well, maybe in the future she might bring up an international. What the? I don't even know how the supposed to evaluate any of this. It's like so random. This whole thing is like so random.
That is reasonable suspicion. And then my next question to Destiny was going to be, Destiny, do you agree that the level of evidence is reasonable suspicion and they need to find much more evidence to bridge that gap to beyond reasonable doubt? So that was going to be my question. So if you can answer that.
I don't know. Reasonable doubt is what you prove in a court to convict somebody of a criminal charge.
Exactly.
That's not what you need to bring charges against somebody, though.
Of course you do, because when you're bringing charges, you would not bring charges based on weaker evidence and then hope that you bridge the gap during trial. You know you've got the sufficient evidence. Hence why the allegations in the United Kingdom.
I haven't found a thing of this. I've never heard of your goal is to get a conviction, but I don't know if it's generally thought of like the initial charges are beyond reasonable doubt. The way that he phrases this is really weird. We might not disagree on this, and it's just the way he's phrasing it sounds strange. But.
Were not taken forward because they found that the women were colluding, and so they knew that they wouldn't be able to get beyond reasonable doubt. Now, in terms of, so that was that in terms of, but I think Destiny agrees. I think I'm not understanding where it is. I think he's saying I think, but
when you say beyond reasonable doubt, that's in my mind beyond a reasonable doubt is what you have to prove in front of a jury.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when a prosecutor takes the case to the court, he doesn't take the case based on weaker evidence. He's not like, I'm 50% sure and hopefully I'll bridge the 30-40% gap during the trial. No,
of course.
He says, look, I've got this. I can actually convict beyond reasonable doubt. Let me take this. And that's why the prosecutor, and that's very important for prosecutors because they have a certain percentage that they've got to meet. So they know that the level of evidence needs to be that level before they take it to trial.
Yeah. So right now they have a reasonable suspicion, and because of the nature of the crimes in the Romanian criminal court system, they're allowed to detain them while they finish their investigation. We agree with this so far, right? That's what they're allowed to do in Romania. The judge has looked at their appeals. He's looked at the evidence the prosecution has submitted, and he said, well, I think there's enough here to let the prosecution continue their investigation, and that's how the Romanian criminal court system works. Now, you might feel like it's an international law violation. You might cite Article 99 and 100 and Article 51, but none of the international courts have thus far challenged finished the Romanian criminal court proceeding, so that is your feeling as much as anything in here might be my feeling. You mentioned evidence relating to women colluding in the UK on a rape charge. That's in dispute. We don't know if the women were colluding or not. I believe that the the police officer said that they didn't like that when the two women were texting each other. I believe the women said that we weren't sure if we should tell the police that he had gotten us drunk beforehand, and that the police officers considered that colluding. Now, it could be the case that the women are misleading their text messages there, or it could be the case that the police officers aren't being forthcoming with the text message. It's hard to say because I haven't seen those text messages myself, but I think it's not fair to just instantly claim they were colluding. I know that's what Tate likes to say, but Tate hasn't produced any of those text messages either, so all I can go are by the statements of the women and the statements of the police. In regards to that, when you bring up the rape allegations, I remember it because you brought this up. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. Didn't Romanian authorities find that there were 3 more rape allegations that had been tried to have been filed in a local Romanian police station, and they ended up not being followed up on because of the 2 women that were arrested, one of which was a police officer? Is that not the case? Did that not just happen yesterday? So, I mean, it seems like the prosecution is still uncovering things. And, I mean, like I said, we'll see in a month or 2 or however long it takes them once they finish their investigation what kind of charges are brought forth. But all we can do is sit and wait.
Okay, so just to summarize what you've said, you agree that basically they're on reasonable suspicion at the moment. They haven't got enough evidence to prosecute or convict. That was basically my argument right at the beginning. In terms of international law, let me be clear. What you keep saying is, I think, I feel, I believe. I've been citing international law. That's a big difference between what both me and you are doing. In terms of why that hasn't been highlighted, well, that's why they got Tina Glandian, who is actually an expert in international law and human rights law. And if the Romanian system does not basically follow what are the regulations, then I do believe that will be an avenue that they'll take. So there's a reason why there's a human rights lawyer that's now been included into the team. So, and she's explained that there is contravention.
I think this is just fake. I don't think she is a human rights lawyer. I don't think she's an international lawyer. She's not even domestically a human rights lawyer. I think what it said on her profile was she'd taken some workshops on human rights. She's not a human rights lawyer. That's not her specialty or anything at all. I don't know if she's ever practiced law related to that ever. This is just, I kind of upset at myself because I asked Pearl, I was like, can we bring this up and look her up? And the guy's like, oh, you can look that up after. Like, oh, it's true. We should have sat and waited for them to look that up. This is just a total fucking lie. This is just 100% fake.
But how you find contravention is by applying and making application. So that will be the steps that they'll be taken. So yeah, I've explained to you what the contravention is, and then I've explained to you that in terms of the lawyer. But the difference between what I'm doing and what you're doing is I've actually cited law. You're just saying I feel. It's all about feelings and emotions. That's basically what your arguments are. In terms of the British women, incorrect. The British women said themselves that the CPS told them that because they were colluding, that's why they never took the allegations forward. But then the women said, "Guess what? No, we weren't colluding. We were talking about about the wine issue." But the women specifically said that the CPS told them that is the reason why it wasn't taken forward, because of the voice messages that they were sending. In terms of the 4 extra women, it's actually 4 extra women who have made claims. Again, none of that has been presented to the court. None of that has been verified. That is being stated in the newspaper. But again, I can't comment on that because...
Isn't that literally what I said? Yeah, but he tries to frame it different, like the voice message. He tries to make it sound like there was something more there when there's not. But
we haven't got enough information about that. We haven't got enough allegations on that. And they're not rape allegations. They're basically, again, saying that he's been a bit... Again, when you look at the allegations, they're again very, very weak. They do not amount to human trafficking. And that's my point. All of these allegations, they don't amount to human trafficking. And we know that, because why don't they want to include the CCTV? You know why they don't want to include the CCTV. I know why they don't want to include the CCTV, because the CCTV will demonstrate that actually these women had freedom of movement, freedom of doing what they want, and it would give a great window into seeing that. And hence why they're not including it, because they know they'll damage the kids, and that's why they're not including it into the prosecution evidence. And... Sorry, in the last bit, the psych report, again... Oh, no, so you already conceded that. Sorry.
So, do you think that the international law will change? Or do you think that Romanian law will change after this case? If this truly is a violation
It's
of
a very good
international law.
question, but that's the reason international law there. Very recently, Romanian law changed because what happened was Romanian law had it in there where women weren't allowed to work as long hours as men. International law it violated international law, and very recently it was changed. So yes, that's the base. That's the reason we have.
So I'm just asking,
that's the reason we have EU law and international law.
So do you think that the law will change after this Tate case?
About this issue?
Yeah.
So this issue is that they've just not applied the law. So they own. This is part of
In
their
your
own
opinion?
No. This is not my
in your opinion. It's your opinion.
No. This is not an opinion. I'm saying they already have this in Romanian law.
No.
The problem. What you're on about?
You're saying the judge and all the court cases are violating their own law right now? That's an opinion. That's a feeling that you have.
No, it's not a feeling, an opinion. The articles that I have cited are part of Romanian law. So what I'm trying.
But we're not arguing with the law. It's the opinion is whether or not you feel like they've violated the law. Oh, Jesus.
I say is that has been overlooked by the judge, so he should look into it. So maybe he will look into it in the next one. But the point is, the judge has overlooked it, and that's incorrect because you wanted me to cite examples of where international law has been contravened.
Sure.
And
So
that's why.
that's in your opinion. That's all. That's all that is. It's your opinion.
It's not an opinion. It's
the judge is the judge. It's their legal system. You feel like
It
they
doesn't-
haven't adequately addressed the international laws.
That's right,
The judge
not-
obviously disagrees with you. That's your opinion, though. I don't know why you think that that's like a fact that you can state. Obviously, different people. You probably have an opinion that the Patriot Act or something also violates international laws. But that would be an opinion.
No.
You have.
So I know that the Patriot Act doesn't violate international laws, and neither does the Romanian system. I'm saying. What should happen is, in terms of the Patriot Act, in terms of the same rules in the United Kingdom Terrorism Act, in terms of the Romanian system, in the 180 days, I'm saying that I said it right at the beginning that my argument based on that isn't based on law. So that is my opinion. That should be changed because I think that's unethical that you can detain someone, especially when most of these people who are being detained are from minority communities.
Sure. And you think for the Romanian law, you think it's a statement of fact that the judge is violating their own laws. That whole process right now, every member involved is...
Look. That's not how law works. If you think that the law works, that a judge basically applies certain laws in a scenario and doesn't either consider, because that actually happens, judges sometimes don't consider certain laws, and that can be an oversight, or it could be that the judge doesn't agree with it. That could have happened as well. So I'm not saying that the judge did it on purpose. It's possible it was just an oversight, or it could be that the Tate's legal team didn't even present it. That could be it as well. But and that's why they've got Tina Glandian in the.
Okay, there's our lots of that. I think I'm good on this. Andrew Tate CCTV footage. What is this? Let's see if we can find like the whole. Is there like a Andrew Tate human trafficking CCTV footage of kidnapped women? 2 minutes and 46 seconds. It has to be more than this. I don't think I've watched the exact. What does that prove? I think what they're trying to prove is that if this gate is open, that they could like run away if they wanted to, is what the proof is. Okay, wait, hold on. Now, I'll be fair. We've got a minute and a half left of this footage. People were saying that there was footage that shows the girls leaving the facility, proving that they could leave unaccompanied when they wanted to. This feels like the exact opposite of that to me. Fuck. I wish I would have watched the exact footage before going in instead of reading about it. Because this looks like a 9-year-old child that was said, if you leave the porch, I'm gonna beat your ass. And they just stand on the edge of the. Do they actually leave? Or is it just them like with an invisible force field at the gate here where they're not allowed to actually walk out of the compound? Because it looks like all they're allowed to do here is like get orders at the gate. That's what it looks like. There is literally hours of footage. This is a small clip. Okay, TMP, show me footage of them leaving unaccompanied, or you're permabanned. Good luck, because I know you're the same. You're just gonna make another account. But go ahead. You've been in here sucking Tate's hour. Take a minute, swallow some cum, and come back. Show me. Give me the footage where you see them just leaving like on their own unaccompanied. I'm curious if that exists. The second person would be watching the other person. Yeah, that's why I'm curious who both people are. The names would be important, but... Could it be there's a guard at all times? That one guy kind of looked like a guard, but I can't tell. I don't know. Bro, this is the... This is... Actually, this is probably the best footage there is, too. Because this is literally footage that's supposed to be exculpatory. Because it's on the YouTube channel Tate Night, and it says footage of quote-unquote kidnapped women. The truth is finally out after months of people and celebrities accusing Andrew Tate of human rights violations by way of trafficking. This shows actually Tate mentioned CCTV that the girls were free to come and go as they please? Wait, what the f***? And this guy looks like a security dude the whole time. This guy looks like security, is it? Look at the first seconds from outside footage. There is what looks like a security booth with a guard peeking out. You're asking me for footage that I obviously wouldn't have, haha. Otherwise, the case would be over. Okay, so you don't know if there's exculpatory footage either. You have no idea. Oh, this is the... Oh, yeah, they're not... There's literally a security booth right out here. You're right. What the f***? Is there better... Okay, Andrew Tate defenders in chat. Tell me what I need to Google. YouTube, you guys have a ton of losers in there that have been sucking them off the whole time. Please tell me there's better footage than this that proves your guys' point. What is this?
Let's look at what the Quran says. In the Quran it says ittahadu ahbarahum wa rahbanahum arbaban. Surah Toba verse 31. So ittahadu, that means they have taken ahbarahum, their rabbis, and it comes from the term ahbar, which refers to any kind of authority, so it could be Muslim authority or any type of person in authority. Wa ruhbanahum, so that is in this context they're talking about monks, but it comes from the word rahab, which is someone you revere. Arbaban, their lords, as their lords. So they have taken their rabbis and their priests as lords. So for me, even before we look at what the Quranic exegesis says, we know that it's very clear that what it's saying is that people have taken their rabbis and priests to such an extent that they've done taqaleed to them, that they blindly follow them, such that whatever they tell them they will follow, even if it goes against the edicts of their religion.
Okay, apparently this guy thefted some shit, copyright. I don't care about this infighting. This has nothing to do with... I don't know why I would care. Okay. He's accused of passing this book off as his own when all he did was proofread the actual author's work for grammar mistakes. Also in the Facebook post, he's accused of embezzling a charity work for... Okay, that's fine. I don't care. Okay. I'm okay on this. We're gonna... I'm gonna read some comments about, like, Romanian law and stuff. Because I got a couple emails and then a couple posts have been made just to see if we can clean up on this. Hold on one sec. I feel the need to point out... I feel I need to point out some things from the perspective of a Romanian. As far as the preventative detention goes, we've arrived at this system out of necessity. There have unfortunately been numerous suspects released on judiciary control or just set free and told not to leave the country who have fled Romania while the investigation was being finalized, as well as using their money/contact/political influence to manipulate witnesses and other key parts of said investigation. After fleeing, it has been unbelievably hard to get them extradited back to Romania, even from countries such as the UK or neighboring countries, Serbia, Moldova, etc. Sometimes they have a lot of money, and those countries provide shelter for them, or they complain of bad detention conditions, etc. Either way, when a large flight risk is clear, and in Andrew Tate's case it's clear as day, preventative detention is decided for. I guys emailed another thing from a dude. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. Dear Destiny, I'm writing for you as a GPS technician who frequently does GPS coordinations and installations in and around, are these real places? Benares, Pasco, and Hillsborough County. Oh, this is in Florida. I'm sorry, I forgot what this was. I don't know how they pronounce this. Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County. Look at our go to American pronunciation. Or Florida, for state agencies and private needs. All that is to say, I'm the guy who slaps on GPSs when courts order them in the Tampa area. I say this to illustrate I generally know how GPS works when they come from the state level and from private companies. When Mr. Ahmed describes Andrew Tate in needing James Bond levels of proficiency to take off one of these units, I began mauling in earnest. First, most of the time a government agency puts on a GPS, it's because they have a reason to believe that they aren't a flight risk, but may violate pre-trial release. For example, go to where an alleged victim in a domestic battery charge is and injure/kill them. GPS are not cheap, and they don't want to lose them to people highly likely to flee. Second, those units they do use are not the most secure, usually using a rubber strap to keep costs down. They do send tamper signals if cut, and they do pick people up, but again, that's mainly for when they already know they're going to a particular place, such as to a victim's house. Third, states are usually more comfortable with GPSs on higher level offenses when a private entity puts them on, outsource equipment risk and culpability for if anyone dies. Our supplier for GPS units is currently being charged with homicide due to that fact. We can provide more secure units. Our strongest units use reinforced steel bands that are tough as shit to cut through, but with enough knowledge or resources, it's still very easy to get around and you're impossible to stop if successful. Naturally, you did not engage on this topic with him, and when he brought it up, smartly, I might add, due to how many incorrect assumptions people have for the technology, but oh my god, it must be a lawyer, because those guys have no fucking clue how the GPS situations really are, but they'll act like they do anyways. Issues that may pertain to Tate's situation. 1, he needs to keep the GPS charged himself. Those things don't have infinite battery life, not even lasting more than a day, especially if you want minute-by-minute points on where he is. And with him, just let it die, hop in a car, cut it off, wouldn't matter. They wouldn't catch him at that stage. 2, as I alluded in the last point, it's not capable of constant monitoring on its own and can't realistically prevent his escape due to how many people he could have working to help him that wouldn't be monitored. Simple scenario. A friend rents a car, picks him up, takes him to the dock, and either sails him out of the cell phone tower range or has any other number of egress plans. He has money and could charter whatever he needs with that many passports. And 3, these things typically run on cell phone towers. Even before the battery dies, get reflective material, prevent signal from reaching the blur bracelet, and you can basically start running while the authorities are guessing if you're in a dead zone. There are even further complications that you could use to shoot his idea down, but I figure I just hit you with basic background and key info that should prep you if anyone else mentions that line again. Caveat, this is just my experience in Florida. These issues are universal in today's GPS tech, but if a more robust system could be afforded or provided that Romanians could feasibly achieve, that would need to be proven, as that would be exceptional and far from the rule. TLDR, super high flight risk is usually not given GPS, they're detained. You're right to surmise that, and he is wrong to imply it is extremely hard to defeat. Thanks for me out. There you go. At 1850, the another black man argument is projection of UK and US social problems onto Romania. First of all, the Tates don't even look black, don't have any stereotypical presentations of black culture, and their accents are quite unique. I only found out they're half black when I learned about their father and what a strong influence he was over them. Secondly, there is no cultural prejudice against black people in Romania. There is racism, sure, but it's more like, oh my god, your skin is black, how crazy is this? I've never seen this up close in my life, kind of soft racism. Also, the most black people around here aren't American or English, they're either from various African countries, such former French colonies, etc. 21, the Muslim argument is another big pile of bullshit. We have a large and very peaceful Muslim community in Romania that has been around for centuries. We're across the sea from Turkey, one of the most powerful Muslim countries in the world, and we have a history with them. And that goes back to the 1300s. Muslims have been around us for longer than Romania has been a modern state, so to say Muslims in an Eastern European country betrays the lack of knowledge and simple tribal thinking of this clown. In fact, I'll say straight up with this dude, like a bunch of other Muslim advocates on behalf of Tate, only defends him because he's a famous person who converted to Islam. As long as Tate doesn't harm another Muslim, or maybe even then, who knows, these guys will defend him to the death from a purely religious tribe motivation. 39 minutes. A mistake the guy on the left is making here consistently is when he talks about the judge. There is no the judge. There are multiple judges. The ones involved so far have judged whether the Tate brothers and their 2 female conspirators should be held in preventative detention. The actual case will be judged by a different panel of judges. The judge, if the case then goes to appeal, that's a different court and a different panel of judges. This is important to consider for all the dumb conspiratorial arguments because in order of those to be possible, someone would have to be influential of a multitude of judges in a multitude of courts. 47. What he's saying here about the judge saying there isn't enough evidence to convict is probably false. What was reported in Romanian media is that there is a specific charge, namely that of rape against Tristan Tate, as alleged by one of the women, for which the judge says more evidence needs to be gathered to corroborate the allegation. Also, like I pointed above, this particularly judge only decides if the arrest of the Tates is warranted or not. He or she is a civil liberties judge. Tina Glandian is exactly nobody in Romania. She has as much right to visit the Tates in jail as I do, since neither of us is a lawyer recognized by the Romanian legal system. The totality of the chat logs is part of the file and will be submitted as evidence at trial. The snippets are simply the most salient points included in the motivation or by the prosecution as illustrative? It's illustrative, right? Another lie, the judge never says anywhere that the evidence only amounts to reasonable suspicion. He says that the bar is reasonable suspicion and that the level of evidence is met. Oh, that's a good point. Also, again, the civil liberty judge only judges the preventative detention measure, not the totality of the case. 13930 is yet another lie. The full transcripts of the conversations are part of the file and the judge has seen them. Oh, that's important. I wonder if they link, is there a way to substantiate? The reason there are only snippets in the media is probably because those are the only parts the media managed to access / overhear during the preventative detention proceedings. However, this does not mean they're not fully there or that the judge didn't read them. That would have been my assumption, but 145, the court has considered preventative measures such as house arrest or judiciary control, but decided this measure was the only one to prevent the Tate brothers from A, fleeing the country, as well as B, tampering with witnesses and the investigation. There's even a passage in the document that says that as the investigation has arrived at the phase where they interview associates, potential victims of the Tate brothers, they want to make sure the control the Tate brothers have over these people is interrupted. Cool, an insult to Romania by a clown who thinks he's a legal expert. It's a bit funny because the judge invokes precedents from the UK and France in his decision to detain the Tate brothers, and the way the investigation has been going so far has been quite by the book compared to other cases, so I guess we'll see what happens. That was some Romanian dude that posted a big comment, I think, on my... wonder if there are responses to any of this. This is probably the most consistent cause of my rising blood pressure over the course of the conversation. It's such a clear fucking BS statement, misconstruing the role of the judge, and he repeats it so many fucking times. If that judge was to determine whether the evidence the prosecution presented at the time met a conviction standard, then there wouldn't need to be a trial, would there? I didn't understand this. I don't know if I missed something. The idea that, like, the evidence has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Proving something beyond a reasonable doubt is what you do in front of a jury. I don't think the judge can decide that. But he kept saying it over and over again. I started to wonder am I missing some key part of criminal procedure that I'm just not understanding? I shouldn't have second guessed myself on that. It just sounded stupid. No, when they bring forth charges, they have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, no, they have to think they can. They just need strong evidence that the DA thinks is worth prosecuting. But that proving beyond a reasonable doubt has to happen in it has to happen before a jury or before a communal of judges, before some judges put together. It might not be a jury trial, it might be a trial with judges, but it's, yeah. I think most people only need to be 40% sure of a fact before they state it confidently, but your threshold seems to be 80%. Do you plan on doing it? Well, no, because I don't want to get caught doing that, but that guy was a really strong debater. He also had no problem lying. I disagree. I don't think he was a strong debater. I think he spoke well, but he was a pretty weak debater. I think that the scary part was I realized it was about halfway through, but then I didn't feel bad because I realized he was a bad debater. If he would have, his whole point, what he was trying to focus on the entire time was that the judge didn't provide enough evidence for detainment. That was the only thing that he was fixated on, and that wasn't the part that I was fixated on. I had a much broader view of everything, things that the Tates had said on video and everything. He had a way narrower view, but he was more prepared on that narrow point of view. I think if he wanted to win that debate, he should have just hammered the of that over and over and over and over and over again, because he could have made the argument, well, if they weren't supposed to be detained right now, everything is bad at this point. But he didn't. He kept branching out into these obviously stupid areas about like Western society and racism and Islamophobia that I think it made me look better. I think it gave me the edge because he wanted to broaden it out and make these really stupid arguments. If he would have just like razor focused on the things relating to the court document, I think he would have actually had a way stronger performance. But he got way too performative with the culture war shit, in my opinion. But yeah, playing that minority card, saying maybe because I'm white, I don't understand. That shit was cringe. I don't know if that played well with the audience at all. Like, bro, 95% of Tate's defenders are probably white. Well, actually, he probably has a lot of Muslims, actually. Now he does, yeah. It's not a terrible mistake, and I would have been able to excuse this issue from literally anyone except when a guy calls us a legal expert. This is super... One of the cringiest things I've seen in all of this is when this dude was on that Jebediah show, and Jedediah was acting like Tina Glandian, Tate's U.S. attorney, should be going in there and telling everyone what to do. She wouldn't be able to tell them, she wouldn't be able to do it as a Romanian lawyer, never mind as a U.S. lawyer, which, as LP says, is basically nobody on. This is an important point, and I should have harped on that more. I think I brought that up once in the debate, but I should have kept bringing it up. Law and practicing law is like being a police officer. If you're law enforcement in the United States and you go to Germany, you can't arrest somebody for breaking the law. You can't go to a jail and like start running their system. Like, oh, no, it's cool. I'm a police officer. Really? Like, what's your badge? What do you work at? Montana. Montana? Where's that in Germany? Oh, no. I'm a U.S. cop. Like, you're nobody. You're just a civilian. Who the fuck cares if you're a U.S. lawyer? Jesus Christ. In the United States, lawyers can't even practice in every state sometimes. Sometimes you have to take the bar in multiple states depending on what type of law you want to practice. The idea that like, well, I'm a U.S. lawyer, so I should be able to go into like a Romanian jail and talk to anybody because you're a nobody, bro. You're not licensed to practice in Romania. You're not on some international court case here. You're literally just a nobody. You're a random U.S. citizen. Why the fuck do you expect to have access to anything related to Andrew Tate? You're nobody. I should have focused on that. I mentioned that one time, but I should have went way harder on that. I wonder if this guy would debate me again. Hello, I'm from U.S., a lawyer, and I want to represent Andrew Tate. Do you speak Romanian? No. Are you a Romanian citizen? No. Are you a registered lawyer in Romania with experience in practice in Romania? No. Do you know where the door is? Yes. Someone wants to read on probably the most high-profile case of an individual who fled Romania after being allowed to recover at home following cancer surgery, Omar Hassam. Also, while Romania is a very corrupt country and the majority of the population is fiercely anti-corruption, there have been massive nationwide protests between 2017 and 2019 against government legislation that would reclassify some pressure to abuse power in a corrupt system. The few judges and prosecutors that are trying to stand against corruption are usually very strong-minded and determined, even when faced with constant campaigns in the press to undermine their credibility. The former chief prosecutor from the National Anti-Corruption Agency of Romania is now the chief prosecutor for EU's. I'll probably try to debate. That Donovan dude on Andrew Tate, because Myron will want to jump in as well. That'll be my corrupt system. The few judges, also Romania's corrupt country, doesn't mean there's no pushback against corruption. That everything goes, especially when it's in the national news. It can't be easily hidden. To be honest, Romania has a huge sex trafficking problem, and they don't even try to stop it until Tate started to brag about it online. If anything, it looks like it's more of a PR thing to target him for bragging about it. LeMayo, they don't even try to stop it. Is that why I've heard about the police destructuring and convicting human traffickers about every month for the last 2 decades? Is this guy, I eat girl farts, is that a Romanian guy? Do you ever think it's kind of stupid when like aliens get defeated by like just really dumb shit? Am I crazy? Like in Signs, the aliens come down and it's like, oh, we're weak to water. Like, bruv, that's like 96% of this planet is water. How stupid do you have to be? Like, that's like humans invading the surface of the sun. Like, how dumb are you, bro? And then the War of the Worlds is like, oh shit, bacteria, duh. Like, you guys are doing interstellar travel, so you have to understand things probably at like an atomic level. So you can't, like, there's no space between atomic level and giant organisms. You can't see a bacteria. How stupid are you? I don't know. It just, I mean, like, yeah. Maybe in like the book it's like more complicated, but in Independence Day they lose because of a computer virus. True. This looks like Python. That was pretty funny. I made that line up. Sorry. Somebody's going to get triggered when I just said that. Did you cover the Eliza Blue drama? I'm going to be honest. Lauren linked me some article from Tim Pool's website, and I don't even have any idea. I tried to read it, and I just have no idea. I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about them. All the lips in this video are way too big for me. Jesus Christ. I just don't know anything about any of this, and I don't think I want to know anything about any of this. The grifter who tricked Elon Musk and the right. I don't know anything about this person. Oh, what else was I going to read? Oh, law student kid emailed me. Push your finger in your cheek if you're live and this is not a rerun. What if that was just a bot that I put in the chat, though, just to make cops think it was? Somebody actually tried my murder plot. Did you guys see that? He pre-recorded a stream and then tried to kill and went to go kill somebody. And he was going to use the stream as an alibi. When I said if you do that plot, though, I think you should have a pre-programmed bot to type questions that you can respond to while you're streaming to give the impression that it's live. He didn't do that. He just said, oh, I can't respond to the chat, guys. It's bugging. Stupid amateur hour. But I thought that was interesting. I hope you are doing well. I've emailed you once before on some other matter related to law. I was a 3L that reached out to you in the past using some other email. Well, wait. Does that mean that you're no longer? Does that mean you've graduated or what? Okay. Jesus. Hold on one second. Okay, because he reached out to you in the past. Well, yeah, but is he no longer... He said he was a 3L, so maybe that means he's a lawyer now. He's our Pisco replacement. I'm constantly on the lookout for a new Pisco, okay? Sunday is not happy with how the panel went yesterday. Yeah, because he was a loser, bro. Damn, I almost felt bad for him. He was cringing hard. Nope. Greetings, Steven. I hope you're doing well. I was some shitty law student. Don't care. I also live right next door to you. Creepy. But anyway, I recently finished watching a debate between the legal expert. It was cringe. I want to go over a few things that stuck out to me. Please note that I'm primarily using my knowledge on United States law. I do not know about the law of the Romanian peoples. But such knowledge should transfer pretty well when it comes to these subjects. Number 1, pre-trial detention. One of the main points the person you debated harped on was the level of evidence required to detain someone pending trial. They also seem to frame it in such a way where what Romania is doing is somehow beyond what is considered normal. Although he briefly mentioned the U.S. doing something similar, he incorrectly attributed it solely to something like Guantanamo Bay. This argument appears to rely solely on his personal, subjective, moral feelings about what the law should be instead of what the law is. While it is true that, generally, federal investigations are often done before an arrest, nothing prevents prosecutors from continuing an investigation when a defendant is detained pre-trial. It is also important to remember that police and prosecutors often belong to separate agencies. Let's take an example where a federal agent witnesses someone commit a federal crime and takes them to federal court. An officer requires a reasonable suspicion of a crime in order to briefly detain someone and conduct an investigatory stop. If, however, during that stop, the officer obtains enough information that would give the officer probable cause that a crime has been committed, or, for instance, actually witnesses a crime in the officer's presence, the officer can arrest the suspect. After the suspect is arrested, they are taken to their initial hearing/first appearance in front of a judge, where they are told why they were arrested and given pre-trial release conditions, like bail, for instance. The defendant cannot post bail and be released. They remain in jail or prison. After someone is arrested, prosecutors have around 70 to 100 days to actually charge/indict the defendant if they have not yet done so. This is true for basically every crime, not just Guantanamo Bay. During this time, the prosecutors might speak to witnesses and victims, conduct depositions, review the evidence, or do their own investigations. When someone is arrested and detained pre-trial, the prosecutor does not have to and is not expected to already have enough evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. There is much debate about someone being detained pre-trial if they cannot post bail because of the assumption of innocence, but the fact is that such an occurrence simply is not uncommon or violative of anyone's human rights. The burden to arrest someone is probable cause, and meanwhile, the prosecutor tries to amass enough evidence to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt later at trial. To charge/indict someone, I believe, my memory may be foggy here, the standard is that the prosecutor has a good faith belief that they can continue with the case/prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, you don't even need to meet the beyond a reasonable doubt standard to charge someone. If If the prosecutor does not meet that good faith standard / does not think they can, in the end, prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, they would have to dismiss the case by not bringing forth charges or by dropping the charges, depending on how far the case has gotten. If you're interested in the steps of federal criminal case, you can view them here from the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Steps in Federal Criminal Process, U.S. Department of Justice. For a little more meat, I highly suggest you to read and review the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. They're surprisingly not that hard to read or understand. You should try reading whatever sounds interesting to you, blah, blah, blah. And then it's some lame fucking shit. Fuck all that shit. Am I crazy? Did Destiny read this email earlier today? Yeah, I read parts of this earlier today. That's part one, or finishing up part one. Ultimately, as mentioned, I don't understand the point your debate opponent was making. It seems driven by emotion or a notion of unfairness and not the law. Presumably, Romania is well within their capacity to detain someone and conduct an investigation pre-trial, to either review what the police have gathered, question people themselves, or find whatever they think might help. Numbered part 2, prosecution's duty to provide exculpatory evidence. The second thing your opponent focused on was international law, particularly a section focusing on how prosecutors have to turn in evidence that helps the defendant. The point was made in conjunction with the CCTV footage that was also mentioned. I will not dive into international law here, but I will address the comparable law in the United States. A case called Brady v. Maryland, Wikipedia link, as well as several cases that followed it, held that it was a violation of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment for a prosecutor to withhold exculpatory evidence, that is, evidence that might exonerate the defendant from the defendant. Somebody just... Oh. From the defendant. I don't want to do a full deep dive on what the standard is for whether something is exculpatory and when exactly things have to be turned over, but the main point is that, contrary to what many people think, the prosecution does not have to turn over everything. In particular, it is well settled that evidence that is incriminating, or even neither incriminating or exculpatory, such as things that would likely be found irrelevant, does not have to be turned over to the defendant. This rule seems very similar to the international law your opponent was citing. Therefore, with regard to the CCTV footage, if the contents of footage were wholly incriminating or neutral, or, to parallel your opponent's criticism, do not help Andrew Tate's case, it would not have to be turned over to Andrew Tate's defense team. I have no idea why your opponent spent so much time on that. It was likely due to the misconception that everything must be turned over, or an overbroad definition of what is considered exculpatory evidence. Part 3, expert witnesses, the psychologist. Lastly, your debate opponent stressed how the psychologist being used by the prosecution was making conclusions about women that the psychologist did not directly analyze. In the U.S., lay witnesses and expert witnesses are completely different. There is a lot of case law about the difference between the two types of witnesses, but the main difference is that lay witnesses can only speak about what they have foundation to speak on. In other words, things they personally experienced directly and opinions/conclusions that were reached from their own personal experience. On the other hand, expert witnesses, once they lay the foundation about their field of expertise, how it works, all the formulas and anything else they use in their field, they can then opine about things they did not see, hear, smell, taste, touch directly or personally by applying all of that knowledge toward a particular situation. At its most simplest, expert witnesses are allowed to extrapolate what they know to the specific case at hand, whereas lay witnesses cannot. Thus, assuming Romania has something similar, I see nothing wrong with a psychologist, presumably an expert witness, extrapolating their knowledge to the Andrew Tate situation. Part 4, conclusion. As a very small side note before properly concluding, it is possible that what Andrew Tate said online could very well be used against him. On its own, it likely would not be enough to convict, but it's rather probable that it could be used at trial if Romania mirrors U.S. law. For instance, in the United States, for federal trials, statements made by an opposing party, for the prosecution's case, Andrew Tate would be the opposing party, do not fall under the definition of hearsay and can be used against the defendant. Anyways, to conclude, I hope all that information was helpful and that you were able to learn something. I could just sit here and do nothing as I was listening to the debate. Oh, I could not sit here and do nothing. No. Okay, cool. Andrew Tate, psychologist report. So was the Indian guy right about the international law stuff then? I mean, he's right about what international law was. He just isn't right about anything being violated by... or about Romania violating any of it. Psychology report, Andrew Tate. What did the actual report say? Does anybody have a link to this psych report, the actual psych report? I don't think it's public. Wait, if it's not public, how the f was that guy? Because I'd only ever read reports on it. I never read the thing itself. If the actual report isn't public, then how the fuck could that guy make so many statements about it? Was he just making all of that shit up? Wait, no shot. Try to look up that report. Mainstream doesn't report on it. What do you avoid thinking about inflicting? Why do you avoid thinking about inflicting pain when it benefits you? Why do you avoid thinking about inflicting pain when it Am I having a stroke? Why do I have such a hard time interpreting this sentence? Why do you avoid thinking about inflicting pain when it benefits you? I don't think I avoid thinking about it. I think I just don't think about it. Why would I think about inflicting pain on somebody when it benefits you? That sounds kind of sociopathic. This is the article. Oh, the article. This is the article. 2 women who deny being tracked by Andrew Tate and his brother and insist they worked for him willingly are victims and have been brainwashed. Romanian judges rule. 2 women who denied being trafficked by Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan did not understand that they were slain on Romanian court as ruled. 2 women both claimed they worked voluntarily for Andrew and Tristan Tate, but a report prepared by a clinical psychologist said they were both left with trauma and did not recognize they were being exploited. Andrew Tate, 36, brother 34, arrested in December on suspicion of human trafficking, rape. Brother's knowledge. This sucks because this is one of those things where it's like, are you going to be an adult and like have a real conversation with me, or are you going to be a child? It's super possible, and it's super not at all surprising to make the statement that like some person was exploited and they're not aware of it. I don't know. I can't tell if the people who disagree with that are coming at it in bad faith, or if they're just like, or if they're just like are a child. Like, no, if you're explaining, you're always gonna like. Of course, it's possible to be exploited by people and not even realize you're getting taken advantage of. Like, I don't know. Brothers and their alleged female accomplices, separate from the 2 outlined in a clinical psychologist report, appeared at the Bucharest court yesterday when their appeal against the judge's decision to extend their arrest. A second time was turned down. The clinical psychologist's assessment was described as extrajudicial evidence, but judges at the Bucharest Court of Appeal did take the report into consideration over yesterday's decision. Is there a link to the... There's not a link. The report isn't public, huh? This report might not speak about every woman, too. It might only have to do with those 2 women, huh? First sentence. 2 young women who denied being Andrew Tate and his brother did not understand that they were enslaved and brainwashed or Romanian court as rule. Yeah. The 2 women claimed they were both left with trauma. Yeah, but okay, hold on, sorry. The magistrates took the clinical psychologist's report into account and ruled that they did not speak knowingly and had been brainwashed through their exploitation. The court said this was due to the brothers' recruitment process of making their alleged victims fall in love with them when they falsely claimed to want a relationship or marriage. The Romanian court ruled, although the named woman 1 and woman 2, both in the statements given before the criminal investigation bodies as witnesses, and through the authenticated statements given before the notary and submitted by the defense of the case file, denied any form of exploitation on the part of the 4 defendants. The Collegial Panel of Rights and Freedoms appreciates that these statements do not reflect reality. Damn. It is known that in the case of the lover boy or by falling in love, recruitment method, the victims of human trafficking don't always recognize the fact that they were enslaved and exploited and do not cooperate with judicial bodies, attesting the idea that these activities were carried out voluntarily. The Tate brothers and their alleged accomplices, Georgiana Nagel and Luana Radu, continued to deny any wrongdoing. His Tate was scored by the... He shouted at reporters, "You will find out the truth of this case soon." Subsequently, misogynist insisted there was no evidence he exploited young girls. Now they're held till February 27th. 15 more days, I think, right? Oh, good job. You linked a real thing. Evidence is abundantly present and analyzed in the context of the conclusion dispute. The collegiate panel of collegial, sorry. Establish that there is evidence from which there is a reasonable suspicion that a certain person committed an act for which criminal investigation was started. There is none. The case is provided for an order criminal continue to be covered around him. Also, the accused appellants criticized the evidence administered during the criminal investigation. On the one hand, in terms of legality, the evidence with reference to transcription conversation. Ooh, okay. I don't think there's anything in these about the psych report, is there? Did this fucking moron say this? Andrew Tate. Get a woman pregnant without marriage, make money, hide it in Bitcoin, make the state pay to raise your kids. Have 4 baby mamas, 6 kids, pay 0. Done. Holy shit. Video of Irina/Vivian/Cobra Baby from March 2019. Vivian is the one who he got working for him when she was 16, right? I believe. The blonde one, yeah.
Turn around. Look.
You gonna do it again? Are you gonna do it like a man this time?
What do you mean like a man this time? Last time I beat you.
Pussy last time.
Like a pussy.
Yeah.
I beat you so bad, I've been called a woman beater all over the country.
Well, to me that was like a pussy. You need to do it like a real man. Or stop taking a bell off.
You're crazy, you have mental problems.
This was in 2019. Did they claim that they were like no longer dating at this point? They make fun of the viral video from years ago. They got Tate canceled from Big Brother. To be clear, apparently Tate didn't get kicked off Big Brother because of that video. Apparently it was because the UK authorities had been alerted that he was under investigation for some rapes, I think. That was the thing that I think that broke the Big Brother thing. This is kind of funny. You and your brother are weird. Don't you get sick of each other? No. All you do is make inside jokes. You've definitely hung out too long. I think it's weird 2 full-grown men just want to hang out together every day. I think you're only saying this because we're not seeing each other anymore. I'm seeing you when you're back. Since when are we not seeing each other? We ended 25 seconds ago when you made stupid comments to my brother. Goodbye. Jesus. She liked another man from school's Instagram pic. Bored of her anyway. Of course she's hot, but I operate at a level you men cannot fathom. Absolute loyalty. Could do with like 20,000 pounds, lol. Get a new run around and pay off bills. I know how you feel. I just bought a new Ferrari 812 super fast for €225,000 or pound, and a new Lamborghini Evo for £280,000. My other 9 cars need servicing, and I only have 10 million left. Helpful. You were absolutely beautiful in high school. Jesus Christ. Okay. This Crabman, this guy's obsessed with Tate. This guy posts huge threads on him like constantly. I don't think any of his information I've seen him post has been wrong yet. But I just that's the dude to follow. Okay, well. Click this to the extent of Don's criticism on the parole thing.
He has listed exactly a step-by-step guide on how he lover boys girls into his sex trafficking business. He uses...
Again, sex trafficking, which involves an element of slavery, which is involuntary, which hasn't been proven and won't be because the girls are free to leave.
Actual prostitution terms like bottom bitch to describe his relationship to some of the employees that he has. He talks about bringing women into his company to work them as sex traffic models, and he specifically talks about defrauding them using taxes to steal money from them. I think it's a little bit racist of you to say that that's just how people from living in England or whatever talk, or that's how they function. I don't believe that is the case.
Okay.
I don't believe that is the case. That's fine. But like many things that Destiny doesn't believe, just because you don't believe it, just because you say you don't believe it, doesn't make it true. Right?
Dude, I hope this guy actually shows up. Dude, fucking a debate with Vosh and President Sunday would be the most nightmare fucking blunt rotation, literally, of all fucking time. Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, stop.